Tony's a great guy.
Okay.
And the packet. Okay, so I'm like,
Derek, it doesn't say that it's on air up top. There we go. Okay, thank you. Welcome, everybody, to the Wethersfield Town Council meeting. Today is Monday, April 4th, and if I was going to call on Councilman Hill, if you could, lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Sue, would you do us the honor of roll call tonight?
Yes, thank you. Councilor Biggs?
Present.
Councilor Forrest?
Here.
Councilor Hill?
Here.
Councilor Lesser?
Here.
Councilor O'Connor?
Here.
Councilor Pelletier? Here. Councilor Pentelo?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Mazzarella?
Here.
Mayor Rel.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. And I saw John walk in earlier. We have just one presentation this evening. It's the upgrades to the townwide radio system. Something I think a few of us are familiar with over the years. I think it was 2013, 2014 we transitioned to the Harris radio system. So, and you were there for that as well. So please let us know some of the upgrades that may be needed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, town manager. My name's John Eichner. I am the town's communications consultant. Among several of my tasks, I do manage the town's L3 Harris P25 trunked radio system. Good number of you are new to the council, but over a year ago, I asked the town manager, and in the context of my budget meetings last year, the town council, if I could bring L3 Harris in to discuss an upgrade to the town's radio system. The primary motivating factor at that point in time was that we have, despite all of our efforts to build a very redundant and secure and hardened system, there was still one point that we didn't have that was redundant, and that was the switching point. We have two brains, two sets of everything, but we have one single switching point that says go to brain A or go to brain B. When we bought the system, and the system was built in 2014, we're just talking about it was staged in Lynchburg, Maryland in this month, April 2014. So it's, the hardware and the equipment and everything is at least 8 years old. When we bought the system in 2014, this feature was not available. We couldn't get a dual control point. We now can. We are operating on a system release 10.0. L3 Harris is marketing 10.7 at this point. So there have been 7 iterations, and you'll hear a little bit more about that in a minute. But we decided to look at it and say, hey, what can we get with an upgrade? So in addition to this primary, as a term I use, primary motivating factor was to build redundancy in the switching point, there are several features, key features that are available that, again, weren't available 8 years ago. One of them is called Presence. It involves the use of GPS tracking data. When we bought the system, the portable radios didn't have the capability of recording and capturing GPS data. Those radios were upgraded, and these portable radios that our public safety personnel use now do capture GPS data. However, we don't have any ability to do anything with it. So one of the features that has been added is a software feature for presence using GPS data, so we can tell where a police officer or firefighter is down to, I think it's 3 meters or 3 feet. I don't know the exact amount, but that's one feature. Another feature that we're looking at is something called RUMS, and that's remote user monitoring service. Again, not available back then, but it gives the dispatcher the ability to turn on a microphone of a portable radio in the field from the dispatch console. If an officer or a firefighter is not heard from, they can turn on that microphone and hear what's going on around that individual. So that's a feature that we're looking to add to the system. Another one is something called device management, and that helps us deploy software to the radios themselves. There's several features of software. There's the radio firmware. There's a personality that describes what that radio can do. There's encryption software. We have some encrypted talk groups. So those things can be pushed to those radios through this feature called device management, which is something that's been developed. So quickly then it became, we had two factors looking for an upgrade, the dual control point and the new features. As we got into discussions with Harris, we came upon a third one. And it's something that we hadn't thought about, but really makes perfect sense. This system uses a lot of off-the-shelf equipment, Cisco routers and switches, Windows servers. Those things are 8, 9 years old. The system was put together 8 years ago. Some of those pieces of equipment are no longer supported. Some, you've heard Windows 7. Some of the devices run Windows 7. Windows 7 is no longer being patched even. So we have a vulnerability in the security of some of our equipment. So whether or not we move forward with a system upgrade, there are components that would have to be replaced within the next year or so anyway, because they're no longer supported. So there's really, then those are the three primary factors why we come to the town. Hardening our system further, making it even better. Safety in terms of some of the software features that we want to push forward. And the replacement of off-the-shelf, technologically, I don't want to use the term obsolete, but getting close to obsolete, hardware and software, Windows 7. We need to replace those things. So that's what we're looking for. I'm going to ask Doug Fellows, who's a sales manager, and Ray Tremblay, who is the engineering manager. They're both from L3 Harris. They've got a few slides they want to show you, and they'll go through it. And then we'll take any questions after that.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us tonight.
Thank you.
We just wanted to go through in a little bit more detail what John was talking about. Obviously, there's some new features that are available to the system that impact, officer safety in the field, whether it's the ability for GPS as somebody is pressing the emergency declaration button on their radio to declare an emergency. This would allow the opportunity to stamp that with a GPS location and a tag so the dispatcher knows exactly where the person is. So that's like kind of the first one that John referenced. I just wanted to provide a little clarity on that. And then we'll just briefly go through these other ones. I don't know, Ray, you want to take it over? I just wanted to clarify that point.
Hi, my name is Ray Tremblay. I'm engineering manager. Just wanted to highlight a couple other things that John was saying. So, upgrade system to include, upgrade system include features not available, original purchase. I just really want to highlight this ability to there's 3 radio sites today in Wethersfield. There's one control point at one of those sites. So the newer technology has the ability to have more than one control point. So if you have a control point failure, automatically the second control point picks up where the first one left off. So this is newer technology that wasn't available at the time of the purchase of the system. I just want to add it's a fault-tolerant, robust upgrade path for Wethersfield. Other things here: upgrades existing system to meet current security standards for public safety. Again, this resonates on Windows 7. Technically, it's end of support. Microsoft is not providing new patches, so that means that if there's security vulnerabilities in your system, unfortunately, there's no way to patch that at this point. So the newer equipment runs Windows 10, which is fully supported by Microsoft.
So just want to add that. Sorry, John. Okay. Upgrade existing systems to support P25 ISSI interoperability between neighboring P25 trunk systems. This is really key for regional interoperability. Wethersfield has a P25 trunk system. It's a public safety interoperability standard, and there is a interface that ties these systems together to intelligently connect users from different systems, and this is called the ISSI. So this is another feature that's available for this upgrade that's included in this upgrade solution that our company is proposing. Let's see what else we got here. Upgrade end-of-life critical infrastructure. Again, so there's Dell servers, Cisco routers, switches. They're past their due date in terms of the ability to upgrade them from software perspective. The hardware is no longer replaceable. The manufacturers aren't selling this current hardware anymore. So this upgrade solution includes all new servers as well as routers and switches to keep your system current for the long term. And protect Wethersfield's original investment for the next 8 to 10 years. So there's the actual base station equipment that actually provides the radio waves to communicate through Wethersfield. That equipment is staying in place. That's current manufactured equipment. We're talking about the ancillary equipment, the routers, the switches, the servers, more or less like I said, the operating brains. So those pieces of equipment need to be addressed in this upgrade, and that's what we've done here. But the actual radio equipment itself is rock solid. So this is next slide here, high-level priorities. I just actually literally went through this in my talking point, so I apologize for not being in unison here. But again, what we talked about, the P25 ISSI interoperability, there's the system redundancy with these multiple control points at radio sites. One other thing I want to add too is we've provisioned for more than one router at the dispatch locations. This provides you, again, some additional reliability. Go ahead.
Hey, John, you wanted to,
You want to add something, John?
Sure. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of where we're headed with Hartford. We're working on renting space to them in our Kelleher site on the tower, and they're going to be renting a vacant shelter. Their system will now be literally feet away from ours. So the ISSI device, they have purchased actually two, or they intend to purchase. They're evaluating bids right now. Hartford is doing a massive upgrade of their system. But they will purchase two ISSI devices, one to connect to us, one to connect to West Hartford. So we've got to, we put that same device in our package here so that we will be able to link to them, and we will be fully interoperable between Wethersfield and Hartford. So that was something that I didn't highlight, but I thought came to me when we were going through this discussion.
Great. So, this next slide puts into context of, the current system release from L3 Harris for Wethersfield. Harris's terminology is SR 10A.0. Essentially, Harris does system release upgrades every year. They include software, sometimes hardware changes, and the current release that Harris is at is SR 10A.7. So you can see there's several releases between when the original system was purchased and deployed from currently today. And along that path, there's various hardware changes, there's software updates, there's feature enhancements. So just kind of trying to paint the picture of, where Wethersfield is now and where we're going with this proposed solution to the current platform. And there's other features available too, like over-the-air programming is another one that's really important. To be able to program the radios, remotely, push down software updates through the radio system. So, so in a nutshell here, the proposal that our company has on the table here for L3 Harris is there's equipment upgrades, there's services, professional services like system engineering, project management, there's factory staging included. And then there is ongoing support from L3 Harris from a maintenance perspective. There's a current maintenance agreement that Harris has to maintain the system. And Eastern has a premium warranty support there's a 1-year warranty included in the system, so Eastern will be providing like basically a 24/7, 365 support model during that warranty period. So, that's, anything else you want to add?
And to wrap it up, really what we're trying to do here, what we will accomplish if this is done, is that we reset the clock. The system itself has a 20 to 25-year expected lifespan. We're 8 years into the current system. We do this, we start that clock over again. We now have another 20 to 25 years where this system will be reliable and servicing the town. You did see on the slide 8 to 10 years. We put that in there deliberately because just like we're 8 years in now, we're looking at the off-the-shelf hardware. We anticipate that maybe that's going to happen again in 8 to 10 years. That's the way the computer industry goes. You got to replace these things every 8 to 10 years at worst, sometimes in an even narrower frame. But this will reset the system clock for another 20 to 25 years.
Gentlemen, before, because I've already got people already asking all around me, you know what the question is. How much?
How much? We're looking at somewhere a little over $1.5 million to do this. And we do have a second proposal. We're still talking with Harris about the details of it and what we include and what what's in that. But it's in that ballpark.
John, I don't know if you know this, and I don't know if Mike O'Neill's in the audience.
No, Mike left early. I saw him leaving the building.
We bonded for that?
No.
If I'm not mistaken, or we
No.
paid for it outright?
Oh, for the initial purchase.
Yes. I thought
We did a
bonded
lease.
for it.
We did a lease. I'm not sure how it was financed.
I thought it was a lease. I
It
didn't
was
think
a
it was a
lease.
bond.
Yeah,
Yeah, because there's still lease payments, I believe.
yeah.
Yep. No, that's what I'm getting at. I think we're still paying off the lease from 2000.
Maybe. I don't know the answer to that. Mike would
Well,
have to. Yep.
actually,
It's in the new budget book.
we'll take a look at it and see.
And by the way, I'll be back before you for my budget
Oh, yeah.
hearing too, and I'll bring some, hands-on stuff. We'll have a chance to get into this deeper at that point if you want to.
Okay. Anybody with any questions for either John, Doug, or Ray?
Just timing, John. We have a ballpark price, but
Timing, I
how soon
think
do we have to do it? What happens if we don't do it? That kind of,
I would like to get it started sometime this summer. I'm planning on leaving my job. I've been here 10 years as a
You said that at the last.
I said that the last 3 or 4 years, yes.
Okay.
But this time I mean it.
Connie said she's leaving too.
You're like
Yeah,
07, you're not
In fact,
replaceable.
Bob Kelleher is my replacement. I'm going to be phasing him in over the next 6 to 8 months. So I've built a succession plan as part of my departure plan. So I'll be training Bob, and you'll be seeing him. I plan on being done by December, so I want to get this started in the summer or the fall. It won't be finished by then, but at least when I leave, this system will be better than when it was bought, I hope.
is it in our budget proposal?
Yeah, here it is. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The new one?
Yes.
No. But that's why I wanted him,
Right.
all of these guys to come here so that you could hear about it. But right now, the only thing that's in John's budget is just some, like 100, 200,000 just to keep things going.
I did put one plug figure in
Yes.
to upgrade our network sentries. Those are some of the devices that are running on Windows 7. So I want to do that one way or the other. And so I'm asking for that as in part of the normal budget, correct?
Can these upgrades be done in phases? Or do they have to all be done at the same time?
Yes, they can be done in phases. There's the core brains, they usually typically are done first, and then the sites can be done after that, the RF sites. So yes, there is some type of phased approach that can be done.
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
Thanks.
Councilman O'Connor?
Yeah, thank you. I just had a question for you. How long has this upgrade been out, this latest version of what you're running today?
Yeah, that was released 2021, SR 10A.7. Yeah.
So, and that's the version we would be upgrading to?
The current version actually is 7++. So right now, if you upgrade today, actually this summer would be 7++, but it would potentially, Harris is moving to a newer system release called SR 11. So that's a 10A generation to 11. It's like a bigger jump. And that.
Can I just ask you to get close to the microphone for us?
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Yes, so L3 Harris, historically, for the last several years, have been an SR 10A dot 1 to 7, essentially. Now they're moving to an SR 11 platform, and that's going to happen the end of this year, early next year. So that's the scheduled timeframe.
So the SR11 is what we'll be getting?
It all depends on, when you determine.
Well, say we were to do this today, do we automatically upgrade to the SR11, or is that a new purchase?
So
10.7
you
is the
would,
current build.
you would get 10.7, but it's software upgradable to SR 11.
And
yeah.
so the maintenance contract that you had mentioned for the first year includes all upgrades?
Yeah, so the first year is the warranty year, so we would provide any software upgrades at no charge as part of the warranty. That's available at that time.
So
That's,
what about ongoing upgrades and maintenance?
I can't speak to that. I don't know if, John, do you want to speak to that?
That's something that a couple town managers prior insisted on getting some of that language, and we do have some of that language in the existing contract that kept us current in software, in security system, security software, and that sort of thing. That's part of what we want to negotiate with Harris, is to get the same benefits that we got the first time around.
Right. So then that 1.5 would include the maintenance contract so that we get the upgrades, or is that addition to the 1.5?
We don't know, to be honest with you, that we'd like to get it for that price, but that's part of the negotiations process. And again, we were aware of the upgrade to, or the stage upgrade to 11, and kind of kicked around internally, do we want to be an early adopter of a major release or not too? And so that's another issue that's part of our negotiations process.
How many municipalities are on this now?
On the L3 Harris system?
Well, on this latest release?
Oh, there's, in the United States, there's probably dozens. I mean, I don't have a number for you. I mean, 20, 30.
All right, and the final question is, you said you've got it up to Windows 10, but Windows 11 is out now.
Yeah.
Does this run on Windows 11? Has it been tested?
Yeah, I mean, public safety, for sure, there's a lot of scrutiny on any type of releases of commercial operating systems. So the industry right now is still on Windows 10. The manufacturer is still, is testing, evaluating Windows 11. I'm sure there will be a move to it at some point. I can't say for sure when that's going to happen. But Windows 10 is the current platform right now.
And so the reason I get to that is, so Windows 7 is no longer going to be supported, so we have to move to something, or we can run unsupported, which is a really bad idea.
Correct.
So that's the reason I'm asking about Windows 11, is are we just setting ourselves up for something in 4 or 5 years where we're doing this path again, because now it doesn't work with the latest update?
I would anticipate that even though they move to Windows 11 and maybe Windows 12, that they'll still be supporting Windows 10 for quite a while.
Well, we thought that in 2007, right? Or whatever the last version
Yeah,
was.
well, I don't know when Windows 7 was introduced, to be honest with you. Yeah, what year? Well, it was installed in 2014, so Windows 7 was running in 2014, so it's been running 8 years. Yeah.
I guess for a follow-up question, would these new radios be able to follow that progression, even though Windows 7 leaves us vulnerable, and Windows 10 comes, there's no patch for the 2, would these radios allow for that patch going forward? I guess would be the simpler question.
We're not, in this upgrade, we're not touching the handheld and the mobile devices at all. The radios are staying the same. They are quite current. Those XL200 radios were not part of our original purchase. We bought a model called the XG75. The XL200 was introduced about 2 years after we purchased. The town manager at the time negotiated, even though it was a much more expensive radio than the ones we bought, he negotiated an upgrade of all public safety radios at that time to the newer radios at no additional cost to the town. So, Harris came through at that point and did right by us. The fact that we hadn't yet signed an system acceptance document was part of that. We had the leverage.
Yep.
But the devices, the end user devices doesn't change at all with this upgrade. It's all core equipment that we're dealing with.
Okay, so it would be, routers, switches, all those. So the same question for that. Would those be able to adjust to any future upgrades in?
To a certain point, yes. Till we get to the point, and nobody here in this room, I don't think today, can predict when it will be that Dell says these servers are end of life, or Cisco says these routers and switches are end of life. When they announce an end of life, they continue to support them for a few years after that. But we bought the most current equipment 8 years ago. We will, in this upgrade, get the most current equipment regardless of where we're at as far as the industry standard at that time.
And if somebody can go back to the slide with the projected years, 2014 is when we bought, and then you had the 16 to 2020, that one, 2024. Are we looking at SR 10A.7? Or, because if there's already future models projected for this time next year and in 2 years, which one would we get? I mean, if you're looking at a summer, I would say, why go with the 2021? Why don't we look at 2023 if they're already coming out?
So Harris does a system release every year, so they're always going to have a new year. So when you buy in 22, there's going to be a new release in 23. The current build right now is 10A.7, and it just depends on the time when you buy it. They'll release that in probably the end of the calendar year, probably like March of 2023 is when that's anticipated to be released. So it just depends when you would want the upgrade done, what version you get, if that makes sense.
Is there a substantial difference between 11 and A7?
At this point, the details on the hardware have not been disclosed, any hardware changes, but the software, there will be different software between .7 and 11, 10A.7, 11. However, if you bought a SR 10A.7 system today, it'll be software upgradable to SR 11.
Okay.
That I can tell you, but I can't
Gotcha.
tell you exactly what model Dell server L3 Harris will use in 2023 and what Cisco series router they'll use at that time. It really depends on those large manufacturers, what their current products are and what their roadmaps are saying. Yeah.
Gotcha. Before I go back to you, anybody over on this side? Any
I have
questions?
a ton of questions, but it's like half an hour conversation, so I'm going to pass on this one. We'll talk privately afterwards.
I would like to personally thank Matt for that.
You're welcome, Dan.
I had one follow-up question. So I know you said you're going to be in the process of negotiating. I would tell you, I personally would look very favorably on that 1.5 million, including a maintenance contract, so we're covered, because this program that we currently have lasted roughly 7 years. And if we're going to have to spend another $1.5 million in 7 years from now, I would think that anything that happens between now and then should be included in anything we get, and it shouldn't be something we have to pay additional for.
We'll probably get, say this with these guys standing behind, with that 1-year warranty, we'll probably get a reduction on our annual maintenance costs that we're paying right now for a year.
I was thinking they throw the maintenance contract in.
Well,
I would just,
But, yes.
I was saying that so they could hear it.
yeah. Yeah.
Anybody else with any questions on this?
No, Dan.
You good?
Dan stole the show. He's good. We're good. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you. And again, you rack up your questions because I'll be before you for our budget hearing, and you can shoot them at me then, too. Thank you.
Got it.
All right, thank
John,
you.
thank you. Doug, Ray,
you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, no other presentations tonight. You guys are more than welcome to stay and listen. We're not going to be discussing radios, though, so. Public comment, for those in the audience, the public comment section, there's two public comment sections. There's a 5-minute one in the beginning and a 5-minute one at the end. I try not to hold you to the exact 5 minutes. I give you a little bit of latitude to be able to wrap up your comments. But if you were willing to speak, we just need a name and address from you when you do come up to testify. Is there anybody who'd like to come up and testify? This gentleman?
Hi, I'm Tim Garcia. I'm Sherburne Road, Wethersfield. The last 2 months have taught us all the importance of local food production. The last 2 years have taught us the importance of local outdoor recreation. And the last 2 decades have taught us the value of local civic engagement. I think the people of Wethersfield the local people are hungry for a project like Kycia Farms, which provides all these issues. Therefore, I commend you for bringing up the trade study that's going to show just how valuable Kycia Farms can be to our community. And I moved here to Wethersfield and to Sherburne Road 30 years ago last month. I love this town, and I fully want to see this project go forward, and I believe many of the townspeople will agree with me on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Anybody else wishing? Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Claudio Boreas, 639 Highland Street. Just want to, I don't know if the town council does this, but I ran some numbers and some data on a spreadsheet about average household income in Westfield, and then took your average housing costs, transportation, food, retirement, insurance, and healthcare, and came out with a generated number. Then I included taxes that were paid, be it federal, state, and then I added something that we haven't had in a while, but I warned you about a few years ago. And I got to say, Mike Rell, you've been a tremendous mayor because you listen and you try to balance everything. And I think that's why we voted in a Republican majority, even though historically we vote Democratic, be it to the House or the Senate, so on and so forth. So I think a message has been sent that says, Mike Rell, he kind of gets this. He understands what's going on. So when I said we were going to have inflation, we're having inflation. When I said you could have stagnation, where possibility happens there. When you have bad federal policy and you throw bad public policy on top of it, what you end up with is the fact that your outcomes and your decisions you're going to make are, no matter what you do, they're going to be bad. So my whole point is that when I look at the data and the numbers, right now, your average Wethersfield resident is about $100 in the hole for all of those expenses that come. Now, I heard Mike Emmett, and I have nothing against, I think the police are fantastic in town. I take walks all over town. I see them. They're great. I think the teachers are great in town. I think the workers are great in town. I have nothing against that. But as a taxpayer, I also have to look at, can I afford, or can the average person, afford what we're doing? I listened to Mike Emmett talk about 110% differential that he had to add in his budget to be able to meet just regular needs. And he says personnel is now 83 to 85%. How sustainable is that if he's going to come next year and say, I got to go to 130 because I've got interest, I've got this rising inflation with no end in sight, because whatever the Fed does, the outcomes are bad. Because if they print more money to keep the thing going and send more, right, that just causes more inflation, right? If they don't and do what they're going to do, that's going to cause a recession. So you really have to know what you're doing this time, because around my community, I talk to a lot of my neighbors when I'm walking. In the old days it was, I'm from a very Italian family. We're from the South End. I've been in town 40 years. And it was, you go from the South End to Wethersfield, and then you buy the house on Soundview. That's the Italian dream it was. Now it's like, I'm going to downsize to Avon, Farmington, or Simsbury because of the taxes. I know people in my area are talking about moving to Avon, Simsbury, and Farmington from Wethersfield because you have a mill rate that is unsustainable to, compete with the neighboring towns. So I just don't know if you guys do this kind of data, because I hear a lot about town manager, this is what I budget, this is what I need, so on and so forth, but it's what the taxpayer can pay. You could give everybody in the town $500,000. I say, pay the Attorney General's people $500,000 a year. Are they ever going to see that when they retire? Because you can't afford it? So you have to be responsible. And I think the time for responsibility is now. And you know what I've said the last couple of years. I haven't been wrong. We're where we are. And I'm just telling you, I'm a nuclear physicist and I can do math. And that's all I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudio. If you can just tell my 13-year-old daughter that her father gets it, that would be great, too. And for those, there is no line. I mean, you guys can sit down. I'll call on you guys, so.
Hello, my name is Jamie Lang, and I'm at 46 Bayrock Road in Wethersfield. I'm calling because, we live near the farm off Highland Street, and I'm a mom, and, we chose to raise our family in Wethersfield, and we were just so excited when we found out that there was a potential to convert that property into some sort of community use space. And I want to commend the town council for really going about it in such a collaborative way and allowing the community to have input in that. And then, admittedly, as the mom of 2 kids under the age of 6, it's hard for me to get to these things sometimes. But I read the meeting minutes from last time and the article in the Current, and I was quite dismayed and disappointed that the idea of the town selling that property to developers came on the table, because if I had known that was a possibility, frankly, I wouldn't have voted for the town to buy it in the first place, because, we have such a wonderful history of parks in this town, and compared to other surrounding towns, there's relatively little land that has been undeveloped, and what an opportunity to take some open space and really preserve it, and then to think about needing to somehow generate massive amounts of revenue for the town from this seems just so counter to the reasons that me and everyone I know who I talked to in town, wanted to purchase it in the first place. So I really hope that the suggestions made by the committee to study the different use of the land are taken seriously, and the faith that you have put in the citizens of this town to come up with proposals really sees it through to the end, so we can come up with a truly unique space for the town of Wethersfield that will continue to make it a wonderful place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Good evening. My name is Alyssa Peterson. I'm from Grandview Terrace in Hartford. I did call your clerk's office to find out if I could address the council. I'm here tonight. I am what's called an activist, quote-unquote, in Hartford. And an activist is anybody who doesn't agree with our politicians in Hartford. I don't agree with the idea of redeveloping Brainerd Airport. I do support Brainerd Airport. My concern that I'd like to bring to your attention tonight, and I wanted to send you a letter and a copy of a report, but I thought it was better to come just announce myself and tell you my concern. My concern is that there is possibly contamination going from Mira through Brainerd and also eastward from the old portions of the airport, which used to go out to what's called Brainerd Road. And that because of drainage problems on the dike and the levee system and on the field itself, that there is contamination possibly going into the river at 2 locations, and then also some unknown locations at the Cove. And I've been around Hartford long enough to know and to admire the activists. I think his name is Mr. Standish, who brought folks' attention to the sewage that was going into the Cove so many years ago. And it seems counterintuitive to me that you would have cleaned up and done such a wonderful effort with the Cove, only to now learn that there could be some pretty serious chemicals leaching through the field and then draining into the river. And how I found this out was about a month ago, I was with the field-based operator, and I was asking him, why is the water table so high here? Why is there muck, on the south end of the field? And he drove me up on the levees, and we drove down by the Cove, and I did see, a fair amount of discolored water and muck and trash and whatnot. But I came to learn that, and I've been following the issue of contamination ever since Mira filed its report. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but Mira did a full study of the trash plant in 2018 and identified 20 spots on the parcel where there is known contamination. And that's coal tar mostly, and then the gases that emanate from that. On Brainerd Field, most of you probably know if you've lived around here, Brainerd used to extend all the way out to Brainerd Road. And underneath there is any number of, lead, oil, gas, solvents, who knows what's under there. My concern is, and possibly some of you remember, back in 2016, Hartford was fined, or there was 2015, 2016, there was a problem with our maintaining the levees. So we are just now getting around to repairing a drainage system that flows all along Brainerd Field. And come to find out, the city doing soil testing has discovered contamination on the field, and nobody's talking about it. And so I'm here tonight to say I'm going to be sending you a report, or a complaint actually. I filed it with the state, and I'd like your support. In whatever shape, I'm not sure what kind of support I'm going to ask for, but I would like DEEP to come out. They signed the agreement in 2018 they actually executed an agreement saying, we understand that there is contamination in these 20 spots. We know what it is. We think it's contained. And I'd like DEEP to take over the Brainerd contamination study. There is a proposal now before the legislature to have a contamination study done. But more specifically, I'd really like to get the MDC's cooperation to allow the field operator to hook up their drainage system to MDC to clean the contamination. There's 2 drainage systems, and again, I'll send you all the maps and diagrams and charts and the research I've performed, but there's 2 systems. One is the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer that spans the levee system. The other one is 4 areas on Brainerd Field, and 2 basically leach out into unknown parts of the MDC. And then there are 2 pipes that go right into the river. Now, I don't know if that's part of the new system that's the MDC is developing. I've done my research. I found the information on CAA, Connecticut Airport Authority, reports going back to the 90s. And I also found, other documentation going forward. So I'd like to share that with you. And again, I didn't want to land it on you. I think this is it's pretty serious. I'd really like the MDC to cooperate and be part of the solution and possibly have DEEP coordinate all the agencies, the Army Corps of Engineers, the Connecticut Airport Authority, the MDC, the field-based operator, because it would seem a shame to me if these serious chemicals are possibly leaching into the river or into the cove. Thank you very much, and I'll send that memo. And one last note, you got a terrific chief. I'm so sorry we lost him. Very angry about that. Thank you all.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Robert Schultz, Cheston Circle. Nice to see you, Pat. Basically, I had sent in just a written electronic email yesterday. I'd just like to read that out loud. So I grew up in this town. Both my wife, Mallory, and I currently reside here. And we're writing to express our support for the Kycia Farms Committee's recommendations for both fields, trails, farms, and educational opportunities. Setting up a nonprofit would be a very suitable solution to further what the public wants and envisions as described by the committee. I grew up in town, and we recently moved back here to start a family and make it our home. The reasons we moved here are because we love the sense of community, great education system. Both public safety and public works are great. We both played youth sports. I played baseball and soccer in town, and so we really understand the important need for recreational fields. Mallory and I really enjoy the outdoors recreation, walking, hiking on trails. It has been an observation of ours that we have noticed many nearby towns are taking advantage of great opportunities like this. We are both supporters of sustainability, and we know farming is critical to our country's economy. A nonprofit solution is a fantastic way to work for and with the community. We both are in support of the community vision that was presented, and we support the motion for the land use survey. The land use survey will provide all the data points necessary. We are against selling the farm to a developer, as it would likely increase taxes through the increase of services they then would require. We ask that you support the efforts of the Kycia Farm Committee so we and the rest of the residents can enjoy this wonderful town asset. Thank you all for your public service and many hours of time you spend serving the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Yes, sir. You're first in the back.
Good evening. My name is Frank Senna. My wife and I live on Eastern Drive, 53 years now. And I'll be speaking about the RFP for our agents of record. It wasn't clear from the agenda whether or not that comes now or it comes later in the agenda, so I just need clarification.
It comes later in the agenda.
Okay, that's fine. Yep.
The public comment would be now.
Okay. No, I have no public comment. I will speak as a representative of the insurance committee when it comes up.
Okay.
It just wasn't clear to me. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Lorinda Kuhn, and my husband and I live on Robbins Drive in Wethersfield. I didn't prepare any remarks. I just wanted to express our very strong support for the Kycia Farm proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lorinda, sorry. Yes.
I don't want to cut anybody off. My name's Christine Lasella. I live at 37 Belmont Street in Wethersfield. First of all, thank you all for what you do for our little town. It's very important to me. I love my town. And you guys give a lot of your time, and I know you take a lot of heat. So I'm not here to give you heat. I'm just giving you my opinions. Bonnie, thank you for stepping in. I've never had the pleasure to meet you, but you've done a great job taking care of stuff. So I appreciate that, too. I've been a lifelong resident here in Wethersfield my whole life. I've lived in Old Wethersfield for 30 years, and I've worked at the Old Town Cafe on Main Street for over 35 years. Don't do the math. So my concerns are for Main Street in Old Weathersfield, and I know I've tried to kind of get in the ear of some of you, and I have addressed this to certain agencies, and I don't know who to go to, so I'm just going to get this on record. The number one thing, obviously, there's more foot traffic, there's more businesses. The speed limit on Main Street is 30 miles an hour, and for any of you that have been down there, that's fast. And I have inquired about that and never really got anywhere with it. I think it should be 20, at least from Garden Street to Hartford Avenue. There's a lot of foot traffic. There are crosswalks, I understand that. People cross where they want to cross. I watch it. That was my point in sharing with you where I'm employed. I see it, I watch. People just go where it's convenient. And if the speed limit is 30, most people do 35, some do 40. We have a crosswalk that comes from the Keeney Center to, depending where you're coming, the side of the driveway at the Old Town. It's that really badly placed, poorly placed, however you want to say it. They also put some yellow, greenish kind of cones up to calm the traffic. It's not working. The traffic's not calming. And they're actually quite ugly. I don't want to insult anybody who's ever idea. I know it wasn't your guys' idea, but it just doesn't look good. It looks like there's constantly construction going on there, and nobody is slowing down. We refer to that as dead man's curve, because people come around that bend if they're coming south on Main Street. If there's a delivery truck there, you don't see the cones anyway, and people don't slow down. I pull up in my truck and try to get out, and I have to kind of watch over my shoulder because people are coming around pretty fast. So I know there has been conversation that those cones might be removed. Also, there is a pedestrian sign in the middle of the road. I have counted a dozen people in a month that have hit that sign, coming from the Keeney. They'll come out of the Keeney to go left, and they just can't make the curb to turn, and they hit it. Nothing bad really happens, but it's a nuisance. The buses can't get by. A city bus comes through there, they can't get by if there's cars on the street. So I guess I'm just asking you guys, like, if there's a committee or somebody that knows anybody, if we can discuss that. I'm all for crosswalks, just the signage too is really unsightly. You come north on Main Street, all you see is neon signs. And I think that distracts drivers as well. So for me, that is my neighborhood. It's also a historic district, and it just doesn't look good, I guess is where I'm going with that. The two other things quickly, the parking. I know the parking's an issue. So those cones that they placed to the side of the Old Town driveway, 3 parking spaces were eliminated because of that. Now, we have a huge parking problem, as everybody knows. I think the parking lot that is being proposed, and I know it's only an idea, but I've seen it, I've seen 2 plans, is way too big. Old Weathersfield should not be a blueback square. It should stay historic, it should stay quaint, it should still have a neighborhood feel for people to walk around and enjoy. I think the Keeney Center gives a better opportunity for a parking lot that can also serve as a visitor center. But that's just my thought. I think the giant parking lot behind the firehouse is way too much. And my last comment is Center Street. Please, I don't know who can do this, make parking on one side of the street. You can't get down Center Street when the Charles is really busy. I have to go that way to go home. I can make it. A fire truck isn't going to make it. And I'm not sure what they'll do. But I know going down there, it's bad. And I don't know how to do that either. I'll head up a committee if you ask me to. But I'll get a petition. But I'm here just to put that on record. So I thank you guys and ladies for your time.
Christine,
Appreciate it.
Just before you leave, one thing about the cones, and to be honest with you, I left the Keeney Center and I made that turn.
You hit it?
That close.
Yeah.
I mean, it really comes out of nowhere.
It's really bad. And again, I watch people. When I'm at work and it's quiet, I'm just like, oh, there it goes again.
But those cones are temporary, and
But they've been saying that since November.
well,
October.
Right. I mean, we're trying to alleviate the parking situation and getting people off of Center Street and Main Street and parking them behind Keeney. But people who don't want to park behind Keeney say they don't want to cross right there. So We're trying our best with
Yeah.
that, and we do have, I think we just approved it about a week, 2 meetings ago, a redesign of Main Street.
Yeah.
So that includes better crosswalks that
Mhm.
aren't angled, that aren't going into the parking lot
Right.
of behind Old Town.
And honestly, I don't care if you build a parking lot that has a valet that will drive people, they are going to park as close to the Charles as they can, and they will keep going to Center Street, because even when he had signs out, they did that.
Right.
So it seems like the appropriate thing to do would be to eliminate.
Yeah, and I don't know, I think you were at the meeting, the big meeting that we had on parking about a year ago. I don't know if you were at
On a
that
Zoom
one.
meeting?
No,
No.
here.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, this is the first
Yeah.
time I've
The,
shown up.
The idea of parking on one side of the street was brought up,
Yeah.
and it was actually interesting because I had 2 people on either side of me.
Well, I was going to say good luck, because
Yeah,
I don't know how you
because-
pick that, but.
Yeah. If we say to park it on her side of Center Street,
Yeah.
his side is going to
Somebody's
get
gonna-
upset.
yeah.
So,
But I think it has to get done, because people will, believe me, I watch it,
yep. No, I know.
you know?
So,
but-
we're going to try and address it.
Yeah,
Yep,
thank
we
you.
definitely are.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Young?
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. First question is, are we bringing the Wethersfield Art League into the year 2022 by getting them to pay rent and to take care of their utilities? Are we moving in on that, or are we going to just absorb it and forget about it since it started in 1960s? I hope we get moving on it, especially include it in our budget for the money that we get. And I'd like to give you some thoughts about this as well, as they continue doing what they're doing in a property that they don't pay rent, they don't pay utilities, they don't pay maintenance, and they're competing with people in the private industry. Okay? That's not right. Towns should not be subsidizing people who work and are competing in the private industry for their customers. And the whole thing is wrong. Secondly, I think that, we're hearing more. We had meetings, I guess, last week or so, the last meeting regarding the Kycia farm. And I know we've already had several people come up here and talk about in favor. And I'm not in favor of what they call recreation and open space. I am in favor of other municipal purposes. And other municipal purposes are also reducing our taxes, increasing our grand list, doing all the things that towns need. And that's what other municipal purposes are, and our Kycia Farm Committee totally ignored that. They didn't do anything regarding building more of our grand list, finding ways to create a revenue stream of more money. Instead, they went out and they decided to spend money more on the town. We didn't hear where money was going to come from, except for the farming operation was going to be, in a sense, self-supporting. Self-supporting, the farmer, the manager, whoever it was going to move into the old farmhouse, and who's going to fix that up? The taxpayers or the Kycia Farm Commission? I think those people should, because I don't want to see my money go into that farmhouse, Mayor. And believe me, if the decision comes that way, I continue to come down here. It's going to get rougher, okay? I really believe that Kycia Farm, first of all, you paid too much for it. Way too much for that Kycia Farm. If you were going to buy the Kycia Farm for farming, there's a limit of how many dollars you should spend per acre for that farm. That's it. State of Connecticut has it stated here what agricultural values are in the central Connecticut, or they should call it statewide, and in the River Valley. We are in the River Valley. The River Valley tillable A is only worth in the year 2015, per the state of Connecticut, $2,090 an acre. We paid $75,000 an acre, and the land up there is tillable D or C, and that's only rated at $1,200 to $900 per acre. Yet we paid $75,000 an acre. We got 5 acres of woodlands and wetlands. State of Connecticut says that swamp, ledge, scrubland, forest land is worth somewhere in the range of $230 to $30 an acre. We paid $75,000 an acre because some of our citizens didn't understand that. Also, our own town that paid over $6,000 for an appraisal refused to present the appraisal to the citizens prior to the referendum. We all know that. And who was that? That was Kathy Bagley. Kathy Bagley was the interim town manager, and that was her decision, and it was supported by that council. They're the ones who put us in this awkward position. And I keep coming up here, we've lost so much on that property. We will never get anything back on that property with what the Kycia Farm Commission says they think we should do with that property. I've been promoting it should become a 55 and over residential neighborhood. You could increase your tax rates, your mill rates, by $1 million in extra revenue per year if it was fully developed in perpetuity.
Mr. Young?
I know, Mayor. But the fact remains, this is what we should be looking at, not a farm that's going to give us nothing. And if we do get anything out of it, it'll be that we're going to pay him to stay there. Yeah, I'll be back.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Young. Yep, I got Mike Orsini, then you, Mary.
Good evening, Mike Orsini, 224 Highland Street. I'm here just to clarify a few things. I was at the last town council meeting. I am one of 9 members of the Kycia Farm Committee, and there are a few things I do want to clarify. How it was formed, number 1. The committee had 9 people on it. On that committee, we were all called by the town manager at different points. On the committee, with the 9 people, I knew 4 of them. It's not like one of the members called me up and said, we're going to start a Kycia Farm Committee, let's get together. The town reached out to us, okay? We were told to get an objective of what the people in the town want to do with that land. I did ask at the time the town manager, why me? Why are you asking me? He said 3 reasons. Number 1, where you live, because I live near Kycia Farm. Number 2, I have a construction background. And number 3, I've been involved with sports in the town for over 30 years. So it's no secret. There's other people on the committee that do farming. There's other people on the committee that, cook, whatever. So we're out to do what the public wants. That being said, we're supposed to find out what the public wants, and it's been made perfectly clear that our input was not to be said. Many times in the meeting, there were only 3 meetings that we had that weren't virtual, because we started in the fall of 2019, then the world stopped in March, okay? And every meeting, let it be noted that every meeting, with the exception of one, from one town manager to another, there was always a town manager at our meeting. The chairman of our committee made it clear, if you're to talk about anything outside that you're not supposed to, keep everything on the floor and on record, because it's a very touchy subject. We are not responsible for what the town paid 5 years ago for that land. It's got nothing to do with it. That wasn't our job. I know that things come, like Deputy Mayor said, nothing's for free. Well, I agree with him. Nothing is for free. There's always something. But what we did is we reached out to the University of Hartford, and they did a study on the property. They had no, and I repeat, no input from our committee. The kids did it, went about themselves with their advisors. There were 12 kids on that committee. I had just found out 2 weeks ago that one of the children, or one of the students, was a Wethersfield resident. I did not know that prior. They did it, they came back to us, and we sent it out via social media. Now you have to remember, we had no budget for this. So in aspect, think about running for your positions with no budget. Could you do it? Absolutely you could do it. You do a lot of walking, so it was hard for us to do. We did not influence them at all what to do. Absolutely not. And the hair raised in the back of my neck when I heard it from the council and some people in the crowd saying, no, you did. No, we did not. We put a lot of time and effort into this. Okay, again, the town of Wethersfield knocked on our door. We just did what we were asked, okay? And I felt a little offended, and I have thick skin. A lot of you members know me. But some members on our committee got personally attacked, and that's just wrong. Now, I know I'm preaching to the choir here. So, with that being said, and one other thing, just municipal use. Municipal use, I know that's a touchy subject. Well, in 4 years, no one has given me the proper definition of what that means. So in 4 years, we have never said that. So that's kind of the reason we went with what we were told and what we were told what to do. So we did our job. There is one thing I am going to bring up, and again, what the council votes on, you vote on. It is what it is, whether you do it or not tonight. It's a part of life. But there is one thing I am going to bring to everyone's attention because I think the data is wrong, and I wasn't going to bring it up, but I have to bring it up now, is with the 55 and older. The data on the 55 and older is inaccurate. It's inaccurate at 110%, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, if you were to put 55 or older on that property, would the town make money? Absolutely they would. There's no question about it. Would they make more money with a 55 and older than they would a farm? Absolutely they would. But did we buy this property back years ago to turn around and sell it again? That's what you have to ask ourselves. But if you take the 27 acres and you break it up into thirds, you get 108, it comes up to 108 pieces of property you can put in. You cannot do that on that property. It is physically impossible because what you need is, it's called a road. And once you put a road in, it's going to cut that number in half. If you were to take the property, you could Google Map, you could put it on Google Map right now and do it. If you were to take that property and look at 241 Highland Street and 217 Highland Street, they back up to Stonegate. Stonegate has 19 houses on it, okay? If you add those two houses on that property, so the front of Highland Street, then you go into Stonegate, if you were to take all that property, you go from the easement from Eversource to 303 Highland Street, there's about a 15-foot difference. That's 21 houses in almost 80% of that land. Okay? So, you know, is 20 houses better than nothing? Yeah, I guess. But if you're going to go back and do it, you know, if you're going to do something with the 55 and older, then I think you have to put it out for everyone to know. I mean, we did the best we could, and that's all I can say. And I condemned. I don't, you know, we don't want to pat on the back. We don't know anything, but you know, there's people in this crowd that put a lot of time into this, a lot of time and effort. So we did what we were told. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Good evening. Mary Breton, 209 Clovercrest Road. Mayor and Town Council, thank you for your service to the people of Wethersfield. The Kycia Farm Committee presented their findings and recommendations to the Town Council 2 weeks ago, based on input from the public. First, I would like to thank the town council for their support. I'm here to address the dissenting opinion that was raised regarding the validity of the findings. But first, we should remember that the public has already spoken. In 2018, a public referendum passed. This was a direct vote by the public. This means that it was not the representative council who voted, rather it was in the hands of the public to vote. And the majority of the voters voted yes for the town to purchase Kycia Farm for recreational, open space, and other municipal purposes. One ever-present focus from the council is the concern about cost and taxes. And the reality is we'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who disagrees with cutting taxes. We saw this in our data, and that's why the committee recommended that any decision about the use of the property must always keep cost as a concern at all times. But there are two sides to this equation, right? Cost and value. The fact that the public referendum passed shows us that the majority of the tax-paying residents who voted value this property. If we only look at the cost side of the equation, it excludes any consideration of the value the public sees in the property. Second, an ad hoc bipartisan volunteer committee was established by the town manager to assess the intentions of the public. I am part of this committee. Our most important purpose was and is to listen to the public, and based on community feedback, research the feasibility of top ideas offered by the public. We worked for 2+ years, and you've heard folks coming up here and talking about our activities, public meetings, listening sessions, survey, walking tours, research. The plan was to hire a consultant. There were no funds available, so we secured the use of the University of Harvard students at no cost who were instrumental. And they pretty much did everything that we asked them to do alongside us, and they were instrumental in the survey and the listening sessions. They did everything short of delivering a master plan. Third, we presented the findings that were based on public input to the town council, fields, trails, community farming, and nonprofit CSA. And the deputy mayor raised questions about the validity of the survey. The sample size of the survey is within a margin of error of 95% confidence level. And further, we based our findings on both the survey and the listening sessions, which is almost 700 people who took their time to give their input and feedback about the property. And last count on our Facebook page, we have over 14,000 engagements. The last thing I want to address is the statement from the deputy mayor to the committee. He said, "I think you saw what you wanted to see." This bipartisan committee approached this effort with great care and an open mind to ensure that all opinions and feedback were taken into consideration. I think that this accusation is unfair to the volunteers and to the people who provided the feedback and participated. The correct statement is the bipartisan committee saw what the public wants to see. I stand by the work we did, how we did it, and the integrity and character of the committee. It's not okay to dismiss the recommendations that were gathered from the public and brought to this chamber. It is okay to disagree and ask questions and encourage conversation, but not to call into question the integrity of the work group. It impacts our town. People will hesitate to volunteer on committees if the integrity of their work is called into question in these chambers. The public voted directly on this topic. They value this land. If the public cannot rely on respectful discourse so that the committee and the council can discuss the things the public values, then we all lose. It blocks the healthy exchange of ideas and a rational discourse that can actually bring cost-effective solutions to light. We are a volunteer committee. We care deeply about this town. We approached our task with a great sense of responsibility and respect, and we did what we were asked to with no budget. But most importantly, we listened to the public, and I'd ask that all of our elected officials do the same in order to serve the public. To that end, I ask the support from the town council to approve the land use survey so that the town can continue to vet the feasibility of the wants and needs of the public and to honor the intentions of the voters for the use of this land. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Cindy?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Town Council. Cindy Greenblatt, 35 Broad Street. Mayor, if you'll indulge me, I have a communication from Alex Serrata. He was the project manager from the University of Hartford, and he could not attend tonight because he had a class, but he wanted to make a statement, and it segues right from what Mary just said about the data. Is that okay? I won't read the whole thing, and I will provide it to the committee. I think Bonnie might have already done it, but if she didn't, I will again. This is Alex Serrata speaking. 2 weeks ago, I listened virtually to the Town Council meeting to hear the 5 proposals presented by the Kycia Farm Committee for the use of the farm property. These proposals were based on the Kycia Farm survey, along with the research done by a group of more than 10 students and 3 faculty members who worked on this project for over a year. The group of students presented our results to the Town Council in early December of '21. It was very exciting to hear the culmination of all of our work being presented, along with the proposals to move forward on some very exciting projects at the Kycia Farms. I was, however, surprised by some of the questions and accusations that arose, particularly as it related to the research done by the group of students. I would like the opportunity to address these concerns. We began with the premise that the residents of Wethersfield approved the referendum to purchase the Kycia Farm property for recreational open space and other municipal purposes. With that in mind, we wanted to first determine the residents' priorities. We began by gathering a team of students with different interest levels and expertise, marketing, graphic design, data analysis, and architecture. We then developed a comprehensive marketing plan to publicize online listening sessions that were open to the entire community. We utilized social media, Facebook, Instagram, created a website, and other methods, including flyers and advertising in local newspapers. Once we received all the surveys, we began analyzing the data, which allowed our team to clearly understand some of the uses that were important to the community. I state with absolute certainty that the results we found and ultimately shared with the committee were a direct result of the data we extrapolated from the process, which came directly from the residents of Wethersfield. By design, our team did not share in advance any of the results with either the Kycia Farms Committee or the Town Council prior to the meeting in December. Both heard the results and our recommendations at the same time. And then Alex goes on to talk about some of those results and the excitement that they generated. He also mentions that there were many suggestions for revenue generating from the property itself, some of which are substantial. And then he said that had there been any indication that people wanted development of the property, it would have been included in the data. So I don't want to read the rest of it, but I will submit it for you. But I think it's important, after hearing the other speakers say that the integrity of the data was challenged, the integrity of the community was challenged, the integrity of the consultants were challenged. I think it's important to hear it from them, that they gave their best full faith effort and that they honored our request of them not to let anything other than the data influence their reports. So thank you for allowing me to do that. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Cindy. Anybody else? Jim?
Jim Woodworth, 33 Mill Street, and though I'm currently a member of the Kycia Committee, I'm speaking as a taxpayer wearing my Great Meadows Conservation Trust Stewardship Chair hat. I've been attending town meetings in this chamber for half a century, and the politeness and bipartisanship of all of you volunteer town council members and your predecessors is exemplary. Wethersfield is blessed to have the Anderson Farm thriving since 1854 under the Anderson family's stewardship. Their stewardship of the fertile acres of prime farmland between Broad and Main, on Elm Street, and down in the meadows. Jared Christensen, representing the 5th generation, graduated last year from UConn School of Agriculture to carry the family farm stewardship well into the 21st century. 8 acres on Elm Street, known as the Great Plain, are now owned by the Great Meadows Conservation Trust and leased to the Andersons. This was one of the Great Meadows Conservation Trust target areas to protect. Early in this century, a prominent member of our party proposed to rezone that farmland bounded by Route 3 and I-91 as an interchange zone without even consulting Mr. Anderson, who owned it, whose
lifetime depended on. Thus, unfortunately, this unfortunately epitomized the attitude of many in Wethersfield toward agriculture. The GMCT, the Game Club, the neighbors, concerned citizens of both parties formed a Save the Farm Committee, petitioned for a non-binding referendum, and defeated the assault. That same person led a fierce opposition to the acquisition of the Wilkes Farm, which was carrying out the plan of conservation and development, not to mention the wishes of the Wilkes family. A few months ago, my GMC colleagues in Rocky Hill alerted me to the services of the Yukon professor leading a land use survey of the Straska Farm in Rocky Hill. I contacted Ray Carpentier, Rocky Hill Town Economic Development guy. First thing he said was, agricultural development is economic development. Maybe I should repeat that in Wethersfield. Agricultural development is economic development. On tonight's agenda is a proposal to set aside funds for a land use survey. Depending on the response to the RFP, the town may contract with the professor and his students or another surveying firm. The committee has been awarded a $10,000 grant from the Connecticut Department of Agriculture to cover this cost. It requires a $3,000 cash match and $1,000 in-kind volunteer work, say building a trail, for example. The workshop with the details of this grant is next week. We're hoping for a unanimous vote from the council for this cost-effective measure to maximize the taxpayers' investment in the Kycia Farm property. I was astonished when two council members, a couple of months ago, voted not to accept the $5,000 grant for the research necessary to nominate the state-of-the-art 1940 Kycia Farm dairy barn for inclusion in the State Register of Historic Buildings, a prerequisite for grants to adapt the structure for future community uses. All I can think of was penny wise and pound foolish. One of the nay voters said they didn't think it was historic and then voted against finding out. At the last meeting, our committee sent Jenna Golis, the bright face of the future of Wethersfield, to present our recommendations. She's not only pastry chef at the urban market, she also has a serious interest in food security and the smarts to write up a business plan. Sadly, a council member met Jenna's presentation with a blast from the past. Doubling down on pound foolish, he advocated building 20 houses to expand the tax base. Fortunately, we taxpayers know that for every dollar in taxes collected from residential property, the town pays out $1.14 in services. As the mayor said at the last meeting, making a go of it as a farm is hard. That's the genius of the community farm model. You hire one of those bright young men or women with a passion for farming, but, unlike Jared Christensen, didn't inherit a farm. You put them to work farming. You give the young farmer the support of a board of directors, donations, a grant writer, an education director, and some in the deep pool of Wethersfield volunteers. We can buy fresh vegetables at the R. Anderson Farm Stand. Fairweather Growers, just down the Shunpike, offers a killer CSA program. At the farmers market, you can join the Killen Bassett Farm CSA from Glastonbury. All three are excellent conventional farmers. But if you prefer organic, you can go to the farmers market and buy from farms in Colchester or Cromwell. Thanks to the Kycia family, there's a customer base for a vegetable stand on Highland Street. And there's a niche, maybe I should say niche, for an organic farm, CSA. To conclude, mark Tuesday, April 26 on your calendar. Come here at 6:30 p.m. to the council chambers for an opportunity to become a founding member of Friends of the Kycia Farm. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody else wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to the agenda. Council reports. Any reports from boards or commissions? Councilman Biggs.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, on behalf of the Veterans Committee, I do want to speak toward the Memorial Day Parade since they are assisting. Just want to remind everyone, this is the first time in the last 3 years that we're holding the parade. We want mass participation. If there is a group of yours that would like to walk or be part of it, maybe make a float, go back to the good old days of parades, please submit your submissions to Park and Rec so we can get you in line to join the parade. That is May 29th, stepping off at 9 a.m. And it's on a Saturday, and most of the Memorial Day parades are on a Monday. That's why ours is so different than everyone else's and the best. So please consider joining. And then our next Veterans Committee meeting is April 13th. We'll be talking about some of the veterans bills that have been proposed, just so we know how we're supporting our veterans in town. So please keep that on your radar. And as far as the Wethersfield Historical Society, there is a production and plan right now that we typically do every year, led by the Times School Production Group. So they are looking for volunteers. They wanted to put that plug in so we could have it on public forum. If you want to pull out your artistical aspects, please show up, volunteer, and try out. They said you don't need any experience. They make you, they make the experience good for you. So that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I know 9 characters that could really fit the bill. So
I think we could do a nice production.
we could. Capital steps. Anybody else? Any reports from boards or commissions at all? Hearing none. Just general comments, council comments. Councilman Forrest.
Thanks, Mayor. And this is probably through you to the town manager. We talked about the state of the roads in Old Wethersfield a couple times over, and as just I'm driving around, it seemed to be getting a little worse. I'm starting to see the cars do a little bit of a dodgeball. It seems to be mostly definitely the intersection with the railroad tracks and Church Street. In addition, Main Street in front of where we were just talking is starting to get broken up a little bit by the traffic, and then as it goes all the way down through Marsh Street, the construction under the bridge on 91 where they have right-of-way, but it continues to deteriorate, and then all the way down and through Great Meadow Road. So there's sort of a decent stretch there where, we're getting 5, 6, 8 1-foot potholes, and the whole thing's starting to just sort of fall apart. So just heads up through you to the Public Works Department, and perhaps even coordination with the state and maybe the railroad might help resolve some of those problems. Thanks for your time.
Actually, Tom asked that question today.
Just if I could respond to Matt's concern about the railroad tracks. I had a lengthy conversation with a resident on Saturday. I emailed Derek Greger, our town engineer, with some photos of the Church Street railroad track crossing. The situation is such that the town is not allowed to maintain any of the pavement adjacent to the railroad tracks, 50-foot right-of-way. We have to receive approval from the state to do so. That request was put in, I believe, on the 23rd, and we're waiting to hear back. So it's unfortunate, but we're not able to send a crew over there to fill these huge potholes without permission from the state. So the request is for several crossings to actually rebuild the crossing, the entire crossing, not just patch it. So it's in the works, but I don't have a time frame.
Perhaps we could talk to our state representatives to ensure that they are pushing the right buttons to get that done.
Councilman Lesser.
Thank you, Mayor. If I sound a little more incoherent than normal, it's because I just got back from cheering on the Huskies in Minnesota. Unfortunately, fell a little short, but we had a great season. So a few important dates I want to remind you of, including one brand new date. Last week, the Career Advisory Board met, and as I've reported before to the council and to the public, on April 28th, we will have our career fair, and it's a great opportunity for our students to get a glimpse at possible careers, and a lot of our local businesses will be participating, and the Career Advisory Board is very active in planning that. Secondly, and this is new, and I'm super excited to be a little bit involved in this too, on May 21st, I urge you guys to try and come to this. On May 21st at Wethersfield High School students will be putting on a cabaret. We will have Bears Barbecue truck beforehand, those of you that may like Bear's Barbecue. But most importantly, this is to benefit the Ukraine. All the money raised that night by Wethersfield High School students will be to benefit Ukraine, will go through the Ukrainian church. So I'm excited about that. That's May 21st at Wethersfield. It's Saturday night, Wethersfield High School. And lastly, as a date to remember, on June 3rd, the Wethersfield Mayor's Ball will be back Friday night at the Wethersfield Country Club. Super excited about this event. My fellow councilors have been great at supporting it. The community's been great. We've raised $126,000, all given to Wethersfield residents in need over the last 6 years. And the mayor, myself, will be co-chairing it. And thank you, Mayor, for all your support.
Great.
Oh, and happy birthday, Deputy Mayor. Today, I'm sure this is the place you wanted to be more than anywhere else on your birthday.
Living the dream.
Happy birthday.
Do we do a motion to sing it? I think Dan wants to make a motion to sing.
I was going to say, I think he's 30.
We'll do that in executive session. Actually, I had a question on the career fair, and maybe this is directed to Bonnie. I've always gone, and I've been there with the advisor. Does the town have a booth? Are we doing a table?
We are this year.
This year.
Okay.
Yeah, we're all set.
Okay.
I don't think we have in the past.
First time.
But this will be.
This is only the
first time I
third
go.
career fair we've done, so.
Yeah, and I've also encouraged the department heads to get their, to offer to go in there. We are so desperate for people to go into local government, so we need to make sure we get to the young peoples.
Okay. I was planning on going.
Love to have you.
So I'll sit there for, I think it's 7:50 in the morning. We got to get there, and we'll have a table and all that.
Goes till about 10 o'clock. It's a Thursday morning, April
Yep.
28th. Yep.
Great. Okay. Councilman O'Connor?
Actually, two things. One is, while you're sitting there, just make sure you inform the students that you don't get paid. Because that might be very disappointing when their parents ask how they're going to pay the rent. The question I had, Bonnie, to go back to the question on the railroad tracks, wasn't there a requirement that for where there aren't gates, that the conductor or somebody on the train was supposed to get off, wave a flag, and then the train went through? Because they did that in the beginning, and I know they don't do that anymore.
I don't know. I thought they used to. Do you know, Tom?
Yes. So way back when, they used to do that. They would stop the train, get off the train, make sure the road was clear, and proceed. When we reactivated the rail line several years ago, that was not the policy. They blow their horn at a certain distance twice before they're crossing, and they don't stop. They go 5 miles an hour or some very slow speed, but they're not going to stop. No one gets off the train. We were told at the time by the railroad that it was a safety issue with the operators getting off the train and getting struck by cars and things of that nature. Not in Wethersfield, but that was the policy for safety of the personnel, that they would not do that.
Well, I would just add that I had an experience there, and my daughter to this day tells me I tried to get her run over by a train, which wasn't necessarily true, but the train waited to the last second to blow its horn, and I was at the stop, and then I literally turned to right, and they were right there, and he blew his horn, so I think either he forgot, and then he saw how close I was, he blew the horn, but he wasn't going 5 miles an hour. I mean, they were definitely going a lot faster than that, and so I had remembered earlier, and I don't really see the train that often anyways, but I remembered earlier someone always got off, and I don't remember then coming to a complete stop, because I remember that train was moving when he jumped back on. But, so that's why I was asking that question is, that does to me seem like it's a safety issue, and that, I don't understand why we don't have gates coming up and down in those areas anyways, so.
Any other council comments? Councilman Biggs?
Thank you, Mayor. And I just have 2 items. I did promise some residents I would bring up to the team. One of them is traffic calming. I just would like to bring that conversation back to the table. Actually had a general contractors on my street doing someone's yard today, And as I was picking my son up from the bus stop, he said, "Man, you guys drive fast on this street." I was like, "Can you please write that down and send it in to my teammates so they know it's not me making it up?" So I'd like to just bring that conversation back to the table about possible options. I know we've gone up and down with those conversations, so I'd like to go back there, especially as it's getting nice out and people are back in their cars driving fast. And then the other thing is I've gotten a lot of calls recently about panhandling. I know we're working that angle, but I just want to make it known that it is still there. People are still concerned about it. They still want us to do something about it. So wherever we are in it, I just, as a team, figure something out, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Well, I'll just finish on a pretty high note. I know he probably does not want to be recognized, but our former mayor, Dan Camilleri, believe it or not, turned 100 on March 23rd. I got that word today, actually, from Rick Newell from the Veterans Committee and the Parade Committee. So he plans on, I think the mayor plans on marching, but his idea of marching is sitting in the car. But I think
He's going to be in the convertible this year.
Yep. So we'll have him. But thank you for recognizing his 100th birthday, and I'm sure he's not happy that we're mentioning it tonight. So, without any further comments, we'll move on to the town manager's report.
Yes, I just have two items. One, Pent Road, I don't even know if you guys know where that is. It's off the Berlin Turnpike. It's a small road. Even when I was here 12 years ago, it was kind of a little, not controversial, but nobody knew who owned it and, who could use it. So there is a small development that wants to go in on that corner, but in order to get in and out of there, they need to use Pent Road. So the town attorney did some research, and it appears that right now it does look like we own it, but you'd have to go back to prove it to probably the 1700s or something like that. And certainly this development it's not going to work unless they're able to use it.
Tom may be able to weigh in on that.
So the town attorney is recommending, I don't need a vote, just wanted to let you know, a hold harmless agreement so that we will not, if we agree to this, that we will not have to do any maintenance, we will not do snow plowing, they will take care of all of that as long as they can have access in and out of there, and they'll do the liability, but they just want to make sure they're able to utilize that road. So I don't see an issue. I mean, if it helps us get some development going on the turnpike, then, so I just wanted to at least let you know if I sign it that you're like, what the heck is this girl doing? So, and then lastly, I just need to say, the numbers are going up, and Town Hall with COVID has been, in the last 3 weeks, really affected. So I know nobody wants to hear this, but I'm waiting to hear back from the town health director and to see what these numbers look like. But I was telling the mayor, South Windsor's gone into the red zone, and that's fast. And then the schools, what's the numbers now, Kenny? Well, they were 0.
30 cases the other day.
From 0 to 30 in probably a week. So I just want to make sure everybody, stay safe and watch with the mask, because I can't believe how fast it's going around this place. So just a FYI. That's it, Mayor. Unless anybody has questions.
Any questions for Bonnie? Okay. Sue? Can you just grab your microphone? Sorry, too.
Sorry,
Thank you.
I have a few comments.
Sure, if you want to summarize them into the record now.
Okay, sure. Okay, Marjorie Carson, 12 Avalon Place. Marjorie is in support of the Kycia Farm Survey, and she's happy to see the outside funding was acquired, and the committee has worked very hard, and she wants to see the survey move forward. Gail Griffin, 52 Desmond Drive, strongly supports hiring someone to survey the Kycia Farm property for possible uses by the residents. And Elisa Petruzzi, 454 Copper Mill Road, is also in support of the town council approving the funds to pay for the land use survey of Kycia Farm. And Kim Miller from 49 Old Post Road is also in support of the Kycia Farm committee, and she voted to purchase the land, and she had participated in the listening sessions. And that's that.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Some of those I think we received in email, but if you could just make sure that they're included in the minutes. Okay, thank you. Moving on to the actionable items on our agenda. I don't believe we have any resignations or appointments. No walk-ins came in today, Sue, for resignations or appointments. Approval of ordinances, resolutions, none. We do have a unfinished business, and I think Councilman Biggs had brought this up. This is the aggressive and unlawful solicitation of alms, or as we commonly refer to as the Panhandling Ordinance. It's been tabled since the beginning of February. Do I need a motion to take this off of the table to?
You're going to talk about it, yes?
Yep.
Are we going to approve it?
How does it even, well, I'll make a motion to take it off the table so we can discuss it.
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Ayes have it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'd just like to give a little update on this. Counselor Forrest and I had worked together to come up with some language that we thought would address some of the concerns that the original proposed ordinance had raised regarding First Amendment rights, freedom of speech, and that sort of thing, because there's some case law that you can't ban panhandling outright on First Amendment grounds. So we are trying to come up with a public safety ordinance that addresses people standing in those narrow medians and encouraging cars to stop, because that creates, a danger not just for the individuals standing out there, but for the drivers who, I know there's been a number of incidents that people have complained about, whether, near accidents, or people falling into the road, a car stopping on a green light to, hand money out. So we did come up with some language. We passed it on to the town attorney last week, and he made some changes based on his, his research. And I realized, I was hoping we could vote on it tonight, but it's not in the packet. And so I know you haven't had a chance to see the final language. I think Councilor Forrest may have wanted to discuss the proposed changes that the town manager had, the town attorney made, to just sort of discuss and maybe make some further changes possibly. But so that's where we are right now. This is something that we're actively working on, and I'd like to hear what you have to say, Matthew, but I think we'd be ready by next meeting to vote on this.
I agree, Mary, Councilor Pelletier. We spent a long time working on this and went through a lot of renditions. This is very sensitive and quite complicated as it relates to the United States Constitution. We don't usually use that term here, doing what we do very often, but this is one that smashes right into it. So I think we've got it to a point where it's generally going to come to this council, and I think I even CC'd the mayor on this and said, if you want to call a special meeting to do it, we can do that. I think that's the time frame that we're talking about. If you want to wait the next 2 weeks, that's fine too. There were a couple recent changes by the town attorney. They look sort of form more than substance in my quick reading of it. I happened to be on trial for about 4 or 5 days when this whole thing was coming down, and it was just not the timing to get it to this moment, to the agenda, and appropriate review by legal counsel formally, which I would recommend for this body, because the pushback, if we're wrong on this, is possibly a pretty serious lawsuit. So I'd like to, at least for our purposes, get legal to give it its blessing. That's the town attorney, and then we could proceed accordingly. But I think it's going to be It looks like it's going to be much more centered around public safety than it necessarily is sort of what's written on the act of panhandling itself in order to protect those particular rights. But we're going to, I think, talk to the town attorney and, or at least very briefly talk to the town attorney just to see if there's any other concerns. And it should be on the agenda for next meeting, if not sooner, but that's up to the mayor. Is that fair, Councilor Pelletier?
Yep. Oh, so I'll make a motion to table this once again.
And I would, I would table it, put on the table until the next meeting.
Okay.
Table's just
Yeah,
slightly different.
okay. So I'll make a motion to put it on the table until the next meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Thank you. And I received your email and, the correspondence back and forth. I received our legal counsel's latest rendition of this. But I wanted to have at least the discussion following on Councilman Biggs' comments.
Sure.
The uptick, or maybe not the uptick, but the continuation of what's going on along, some of our major thoroughfares. Moving along, there's no bids, no other business for introduction. We do have a couple items for new business, and one we have heard a little bit about from the public comments, the $3,000 land surveying grant.
Yeah, I'm going to do it.
You're going to do that? Okay.
Yes, as was talked about last week, last meeting, I should say, and also tonight, the Kycia Farm committee members had worked hard on trying to put together a farm viability grant that could be presented to the Department of Agriculture for a $10,000 grant for land surveying. They were lucky enough to receive that, and it's a 60-40 split. So the Kycia Farm Committee said they would, in-kind services, put aside $1,000. The state would give us $6,000, but we have to not match dollar for dollar, but $3,000 for a total of $10,000. So what I did was bring it to you tonight. Would come out of contingency because right now you're in the last quarter of the budget year, so you can take it out of that now. So with that, Mayor, I don't know if anybody has questions, but I think we have discussed it quite a lot.
Mm-hmm. Discussion? Councilman Forrest?
Yeah, I'm just going to move to fund $3,000 from contingency as the town's share of the farm viability grant to conduct a land survey of the Kycia Farm property.
I'd like to make
Second.
a comment.
Second.
Discussion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion?
Yes, I have a couple things I'd like to discuss, if I could.
Sure.
I want to get some clarification. I'll try to ask politely, not like I did at the last meeting, evidently. I want to understand what this grant is paying for specifically. I understand it to be farm viability grant, and from reading the materials, it appears they're going to survey the property with land surveyors, transits, measurements, and come up with a map of which pieces of land could be used for farming and which could not. The Kycia Farm Committee is advertising this as to support a master plan of development for the farm with a Department of Agricultural grant. I don't believe we're going to get a master plan, if somebody could just clarify that. I think we're going to get a map that shows what land can be used for farming and what land cannot be used for farming. I don't believe it's going to indicate where we should put ball fields, where we should put walking trails, where we should put community gardens, etc. So could I just get clarification on that?
to clarify that, we developed a draft RFP, which is the proposal that we'll be seeking. I think if the town manager, if I'm saying it correctly, we want to go out for RFPs, we want at least 3 bids. Is that correct? So we're going to, all right, so this is the RFP we came up with, this is what we can hope to get from it. There'll be a preliminary meeting with the Parks and Rec leaders or their designees to identify the wetlands, watercourse areas, review community reuse ideas, and define the land survey goals. So that will be public. There'll be an on-site study of the natural and cultural features of the property and the neighborhood. There will be conceptual map overlays, so there'll be a base map which will have the physical and cultural features that they just identified. Then there'll be a conceptual map on top of that, and that'll locate the top community reuse recommendations, which you heard 2 weeks ago. Those included agriculture, the community gardens, the best site for recreational fields, appropriate sites for trails, open space designation, and adaptive reuse scenarios, and those includes things like the buildings that are on the property, the dilapidated greenhouse or the barn. So that's an adaptive reuse. That map, so there'll be the base map, then there'll be that conceptual map, then on top of that, the third layer will be vehicular. It'll include parking areas and pedestrian circulation, all related to the reuse ideas. And then finally, the fourth thing, which could be either 3D or another overlay, will be the sight lines, the street views, and then any general recommendations, including landscaping, which is one of the things that the community members brought up repeatedly. They wanted to make sure that this beautified their neighborhood. So the landscaping to address the neighborhood location. And then the final thing would be a design and community presentation, which will include but not be limited to the overlay maps, possible aerial views, a potential 3D model, drawings, and then the master plan with the timeline. So that's the request for proposal that we're getting from the $10,000 that we're going out with.
So if you could stay up, maybe a question.
Well, that's the draft. That will come out of the town manager's office, but the Jim Woodworth and I and Bonnie all worked together to try and come up with that draft. And we based it on the Yukon proposal. We had a model that Jim Woodworth referenced in his public comments earlier from the Yukon model. Peter Miniuti did this model for Rocky Hill on the Straska farm. So that's what we hope to get. It'll be extensive, and it'll be visual, and it'll involve the community, and it'll relate directly to those reuse scenarios that we discovered from the data. And I think it'll be useful for a decade or not, a decade or longer. I mean, Millwoods, we were talking about the master plan, I've forgotten. Is it 92? I've forgotten when the Millwoods master plan was created, but this will be as valuable as that. It will be useful for decades to come, depending on how fast you can create the reuse.
Ms. Greenblatt, I fully support the survey. I actually believe it should have been done 4 years ago before we made other decisions. I do, however, I'm concerned that the application that you submitted, the 14-page application, doesn't really indicate what you just told us. It's more geared towards determining where the farmland would be. It doesn't really say that we can use that money for what you described. Are we going to get ourselves in trouble by accepting the grant and then going overboard with what we told them we were going to do?
Well, I would say that they knew about the Yukon survey, so that they were aware that it was, the 3 things that we're obligated to do are the tasks that were written into the grant, which is to locate the best areas for farming, a potential for a recreational field, to locate the best areas for trails, and then to host one activity. Those are the grant obligations.
If I may.
You may.
I'm going to read you the response to question number 2. Explain in detail your project proposal. The results indicate that a community favors multiple uses for the property. 1, establishment of a large community farm modeled after the Massaro Farm in Woodbridge with a CSA program in community gardens. 2, active and passive recreation areas on the property compatible with farming. I'm not quite sure what that means. Is a football field compatible with farming? And 3, the adaptive use of existing barn structures.
That's from the draft, from the actual application.
That's
Right,
what we told them we're going to use the money for.
right. And that's why I repeated it in the RFP.
I'm going to go back to the survey, if I could. And I probably misspoke. I'm sorry if it came across the wrong way. I was challenging the amount of people that completed the survey. I am obviously in the minority with that, so I'm going to assume that the survey was done properly, and it's accurate, and it was summarized in the Appendix B of the last meeting. And it says, combined listening / survey results. Number 1, 29% sports fields. Number 2, community gardens, 28%. Number 3, walking trails, 24%. Number 4, open space, 15%. And education, number 5, at 5%. That's the survey results of the community listening sessions and the physical survey. I don't see farming on here. I don't see barns on here. So
It was
help me out here.
included with gardens.
Why is it included with gardens when the December survey results said community gardens? That's what was listed on the chart. Not farming, community gardens, and now it's changed to just gardens.
No, nobody changed it. That was the students that did it. And
Well,
so
the students
they lumped agriculture and gardens together.
Okay. Gardens was number 2. Your application minimizes sports fields. It absolutely minimizes athletic fields. It's focused on farming, okay? What happens, and the sports people fought hard for this, what happens if the farming land, the most flat land, happens to be where they want to put the ball fields? And why does it just say possibly a ball field? Why doesn't it say 2, 3, 4 soccer fields, maybe a baseball field? It doesn't say that. It says possibly a field.
Well, I'm smiling because when I did a lot of discussion with the Department of Agriculture about the grant, and they wanted to know, why do we want a ball field there? And the reason I gave them is because the community has asked for it. It's recreational use, and the community asked for a ball field. There was a subcommittee of the Kycia Farm Committee that worked with members, not only of the committee, but Dan O'Connor was on that committee as well, kind of as just giving us advice. And the Recreation Department needs indicate that there's 2 fields that are needed in the community. One is already sited at Mill Woods. The other could be sited at Kycia Farm. So that's why it says 1 field. That was the information that was brought forward to the committee. So the Department of Agriculture understood that we weren't preserving this land as farmland, that it was going to be both, it was going to have the multiple uses that the survey suggested, and they're all included in there.
Will you agree with me that the survey results by the U of H students did not support farming?
Would I agree with you?
Yes, it's not on the chart.
No.
Farming is not on the chart. How can you dispute that? I'm not trying to argue with you, Ms. Greenblatt. I'm trying to be calm, but it's not on the chart.
The word farming isn't on the chart. That's what's not there.
It says community gardens. That's what it said. In December, I looked at the other survey.
I will provide you all of the data, and you can look through it yourself, so you can see the number of people that selected farms.
I'll just remind you that at the last meeting, you told me thousands of people supported farming. And I asked you for the number of responses that indicated farming. You did not answer.
Well, I don't remember that, but I can see right here that between gardens and community farming, that the percentages are just as you cited, that there were 183 people that in combination, unfortunately, the students lumped together as
Here it is
gardens
right
and
here,
farming.
Cindy. It was in the packet.
I have the packet in front of me.
And where does it say farming?
It says, I've offered you the explanation twice. I'll give it to you a third time. But the students put agriculture and community gardens together. And I can provide you with all the raw data to show you that, if you want to hear it.
Thank you.
I also, are there any other questions while I'm here on any of the RFPs or anything else that, the understanding of the Department of Ag? There's going to be a meeting, a required meeting on April 12th that's going to be attended by either Kathy Bagley or a designee and a member of the committee, and they're going to go over all the contract language so that we will be certain as to exactly what we are agreeing to.
Councilman, or Councilwoman Pelletier?
Thank you. So I just want to preface this by saying I'm in favor of this survey, and I like the way you described the RFP. It sounds like very thorough and goes well beyond the agriculture piece. So I think this sounds very promising. But I also appreciate the committees going and seeking out this grant. That's great. But I'm a little bit confused. So it's the RFP. Do we anticipate the bids coming in substantially higher than 10 grand? And do you know how much Rocky Hill paid for their similar survey of that farm in Rocky Hill?
We do. The one survey that we know is the Rocky Hill survey, and it was 10,000. And that was the reason we asked for 10,000.
Okay.
So, and I actually went over that a couple times with the town manager, whether we should give a range, like say 6 to 9, 6 to 10. But, I mean, put a cap on it. We only have 10,000, so I wouldn't even solicit anybody who's going to bid more than that.
Okay.
Not my decision, but that's what I would recommend.
Okay. And the Rocky Hill one had, it was very similar to what you described.
It was included in the packet 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
That was
I
the sample.
reading through tonight's packet, but okay, great. No, that sounds good. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Councilman Forrest?
I'd like to talk a little bit about the future. What is is there a expected sort of time frame about which we could maybe receive back this if the RFP passes here today and goes out, that kind of thing?
Well, I'm going to defer to the town manager on the RFPs because I know it's budget season and people are busy, and you have like a 30-day turnaround, but the Department of Agriculture wants a 6/1, June 1st start, which is one of the reasons that we're before you tonight. And it's a 6 months. So we would know in 6 months, we would have this information.
Yeah, I mean, once this money if it is approved, then we've got to get that RFP ASAP. But, you've got to give people time also to respond. So you're looking at, 3 weeks, 4 weeks to get it back. Plus, I would think there should be some kind of an interview process. We usually do that with RFP. So we got a small window here to meet the state's deadline to keep the money. So
we have 2 candidates already.
Right back the money.
Sure.
We have 2 candidates, the UConn, and then there's another firm that expressed interest, and I explained to them the process we were going through, and they were well aware of it.
So then we're looking at maybe another 4 months after that to sort of actually get the survey back?
Oh, to get it
Probably
back?
6,
Yeah.
6 months.
That's what I was hearing, like the fall or so. And then, and I understand the Kycia committee is now sort of done with their work. And now it would sit here, my understanding is it would sit here with us. Now, we would have that information, and then we would, what is the sort of idea about the future handling of the property with this new piece of information, if of course it passes?
Well, it's still town land, so it has to come back to you guys. So we would share the the actual land survey and bring it back to you, and then you'd have to discuss it. Now, I know the Kycia Farm Committee is towards the end of April, they're going to start doing a nonprofit. But again, the town owns that property, so ultimately it's going to come back to all of you.
And the plan is for, like any nonprofit, we're the town's partner.
Sure.
Everything goes through the town, like all the nonprofits in the community.
Is it the concept, though, that the Kycia Farm Committee, even though it's not technically that, will then sort of morph into this new board, which might be a steward for at least a piece of this land? Is that the concept that is certainly just generally being discussed without any formalities?
I think Jim Woodworth mentioned Friends of the Kycia Farm. It's going to be organizing right in this chamber at the end of April.
Okay.
And we have people in the community that have come forward already to kind of help us, that have experience with nonprofits, and will help us with the legalities and things like that.
Just one other quick comment. Judy Keene, the community center, perfect example of how it worked. You know, Judy came to us, she had all kinds of ideas of how she wanted to spend the money, she wanted to build a recreation facility, blah, blah, blah. Finally, I looked at her, I said, you know what, why don't we do a partnership? She had a nonprofit, we had a need, we worked together, it was town property, it always came back to the council on the use of that property. And it worked. Look what we got. We got a beautiful facility over at the community center, and the nonprofit, you know, funds it and kind of semi-runs it, but ultimately it's us. So it's the same type of thing.
It's a good analogy. Thank you for that.
And there's Keen on Kids, which has also developed a tremendous partnership with the Board of Education. So it just shows you how it's just a mutually beneficial relationship that doesn't cost the town anything.
Thank you for that analogy.
Okay. All set?
And I think at
Thank
the
you.
time, the then governor funded some of that funds to Wethersfield. So it was a local nonprofit, state-funded endeavor. Councilman O'Connor?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, there was two things. One is I wanted to thank the committee for the work that they have done. I am the liaison to that committee, and I have had an opportunity to be parts of those meetings, and I think you guys have done an incredible job. I think it is incredibly professionally run. I do adamantly believe that it was run above board. I may disagree with my colleague here that I don't think you went into it trying to get what you wanted out of it. I truly believe they gave you the results, and from there you were able to see if they matched up with what the community wanted, and now we're trying to go the next step to find out where can we put the pieces the community want. Where I do disagree on one of the comments is, I personally don't feel the town needs more people. I think we need more services for the people we already have. And so when I look at Kycia Farms, I'm not looking at it as let's bring more people in here. I'm thinking, don't we owe it to the citizens we already have to give them the best of what we can? I will tell you from someone who's very involved in youth sports in this town, the town is short fields. It is incredibly short fields. In fact, the youth lacrosse program this year can't play at Cove Park because when they went to resod the field after the Keene Carnival, they decided to fill it with asphalt. So now they can't even use that field. And so these are the type of things that just now they're running around trying to find out, can we share with the soccer program? And can we negotiate with the soccer league to use a field? Clearly, the town is short on fields. And even using that field, if you ever go over there, there are cement posts that were built in there from the old prison that have never been removed from the ground. The actual main lacrosse field literally goes down into the cove. And so, you know, when you look at that and you talk to parents and other towns come in and visit our town, you know, this is what we represent to them. This is what people take away when they come and visit our town, like, geez, look at that facility. Well, you know what? When people go and visit Catone Field, they don't feel that way. They go back and say, why can't our town do something like that? And that's what we should be doing with Kycia Farms. And so I'm ready to call the vote on that. Matt, I do support this. I was glad to be a part of your committee. I thought you guys did a great job. And I'm very excited to see where that goes.
Any further comments? The motion and second are before us. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Moving on to item B6B, and this is the work that Claudia and yourself have done on the supervisors group, or actually this is the department heads, change of their retirement portion that they pay into. We did have some questions on this. I don't know if Claudia is here.
She's in the other room. Yeah, the non-union administration group came to me. There's 8 department heads that are not, and one, actually there's 8 department heads and 1 confidential employee who is not in a union. Everybody else is unionized. And they have not had a benefit change to their compensation package since I was here. 2008, that's when I was here. And so obviously, meanwhile, we've negotiated contracts, and everybody they supervise has gone way over them when it comes to retirement and things like that. So they came to me and said, we would like to request that we enhance those benefits so that we're equal to those people that we supervise. So I said, well, if you're going to do that, then it's good that you're equal on all ends. So I said, you can't just come from our retirements. You need to also be able to match when it comes to health co-share. So they said, yeah, they were willing to do that. So there is no budget increase to this request. If anything, it's going to save the town $30,000 roughly, and the employees will end up paying an additional $14,000. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. It's really important that we keep those non-union department heads and employees so that they are at level with the people they supervise. And so this would certainly do that. And 2008 is a long time that they haven't had anything change for them.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Deputy Mayor?
I have a question about the attachment. And if you go onto the far right-hand side of the sheet, the spreadsheet, we have increased costs to the employees, $30,180. I assume that's money that's coming out of their pocket to pay for these benefits and also to contribute to their 457 plan. And then in the far right column, increased costs to the town, $14,029. Is that not the matching money that we're going to put into the 457 plan?
Yes, it should be. Correct, Claudia? Yes. Claudia, to the mic. Thank you.
That is correct, Deputy Mayor.
So isn't that an increased cost to the town? What the agenda item says there's no increase to the town. But we're going to be paying $14,029 more.
If you take a look at all the additional costs that the employees are going to incur, and then back out the additional cost to the town, there is no cost to the town.
The increased costs to the employees, aren't they paying for increased benefits?
Yes, we are. We will be.
That has to cost some money, and the employees are paying for it.
Our cost, co-share benefit cost, the percentage is increasing. That's our cost, that's not the town's cost. So it's going to cost the town less because our percentage increases.
Where does the money come from for the 457 match?
There is no 457 match, there's only a 401A match.
A 401A match. It's the third row down. Who's paying for the 14,029 increased cost to the town? Isn't the town paying that?
The town does have an increased cost of $14,000, but if you look at the total increase to the employees, it cancels it out.
So
I don't understand it.
Yeah, so I guess to better clarify it then, Claudia, the additional amount that the town employees would be putting in is $30,000.
Mm-hmm. Right, between health insurance and everything.
But there's a match that comes from the town side to a certain class of employees.
Correct.
At $14,000.
And the employees are also encumbering that additional cost. So the
net cost.
The net cost, excuse me, thank you, Bonnie, it was 4.5%. So it's increasing, so the employees have to pay that increase as well.
From their base salary.
From
base now is also increasing. So what they were making before, they have to pay more
Yeah, I guess, trying to get my head around it too.
Yeah, but you're talking about the amount of money that the employees are now going to put into all these retirements and everything else. And then, yes, there's a match that you guys have to do.
There isn't, there,
But-
it seems to me the town is paying an additional amount.
Well, the 14,000, if that's
Yeah,
what you're saying.
that's
yeah.
what I'm talking about.
I think that's
Correct.
But the agenda item says there's no increase to the town. There is. It's 14,009.
So the additional percentage that the employees are paying for co-share premium, the 401A match, that money is going into the town coffers. So we're putting in 30,000, but we're only pulling out 14 additional thousand.
Okay, you're using that money for the other benefits to pay the match.
Right,
Thank you. That was just hard to understand.
No
I'm sorry.
problem.
probably the way I phrased it.
I'm starting to get a reputation here as being difficult.
You had a nuclear physicist helping us out, too.
Thank you.
Was that, okay.
Okay.
Guess that comes with old age.
Sing him happy birthday.
Any other questions now that that's been clarified?
I'll make a motion as soon as I find it. I'll make a motion to approve the benefit changes as outlined on the attached sheet for the 8 administrative employees, including the following department heads: engineering, finance, human resource, library director, director of physical services, parks and recreation / social and youth services, the town clerk, and the executive secretary to the town manager.
Second.
Brian,
It's your call, Sue. Who do you want?
Counselor Biggs, he's in first.
try to be louder than me so you can hear it.
Okay.
Counselor Biggs did it.
Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion on it? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. Claudia, thank you for clarification. Thank you, Bonnie. Item B6C, this is the Derek Greger or Sally, I don't know. Sally's here. Are you here for this, Sally?
Yeah, but I'm going to
Okay.
start it off.
Okay. This is the 3 projects that would fall under this bid for, I guess we're looking at projects that we need to first study before we start working on them.
As a part of the ARPA listing of how we're going to utilize funds, and as a part of the capital list, there are 3 projects that are on that list. There's an engineering services, I'm sorry, no. I was with him on the plane since 3 o'clock in the morning, so I mean, that's when I started getting ready to get on a plane. So it's, I think we're all about had it. Is to replace the library rooftop unit, a generator at the library, a replacement of the generator at the police department. If the council wishes to move forward with doing any of those projects, then we feel that we should do the engineering service part of it now, and get that done so that by the time there's any ARPA funds or whatever funding, then we would be in place to get that done. We do not have the staff that can do this. It's just impossible. So again, it's just really if you're going to decide to move forward with these projects. Sally went and got some information through one of the Capital Region councils, and Fuss and O'Neill was a part of that. She got pricing from them. The combined cost was, for that was $110,000. She then went to RZ Design Associates, and got a much better price at $46,700, and they have worked with us on other projects throughout town. So it's our recommendation that you go with RZ Associates for designs and engineering for those projects.
Any question?
Brian.
Councilman Biggs?
Thank you, Mayor. For these projects, and I think Deputy Mayor has a lot more knowledge of these projects, but like, what is like, I see that it says that it's on its last leg, but like, That's just a word. Like, so, like, what determined that it's on its last leg? I don't like to just take someone's feelings that it's on its last leg. What proof do you have to tell me this is not going to last?
I'll have Sally address that, because that's her staff that has.
I'm just saying that 'cause my wife said her car was on its last leg 5 years ago and we're still driving it.
No, Sally Katz, Director of Physical Services. The generator at the PD is over 20 years old. It is a Generac generator. That particular generator is actually made up of many different parts from different companies. Generac entered into agreements with those companies at the time that they were putting those generators together. Generac has now ceased having relationships with those companies, so therefore trying to get parts for a 20-year-old generator from the company, from Generac, no longer having relationships with the manufacturers of those parts has made it very difficult for us to even get information on what those parts are when we try to replace them. And so like the engine motor of it is made by a company that no longer connects with Generac. And so we can't get the designs, we can't get updated parts for the generator, first of all, because it's 20 years old and they've stopped making them because they're making other types of parts for those generators. And so a lot of it is because of the severing of the contracts between Generac and all of the subcontractors who made parts to go into their machine. It's also had some failures over, there's also currently a fuel leak that we're trying to fix. It's reoccurring. And again, sourcing parts for the machine has become very difficult because we can't go to a distributor and supplier because they just don't have them. I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor. I was just trying to finish the question.
I'm in support of the hiring of the engineering firm. I'm curious, can we include or ask them to modify their proposal so that we can get qualified experts on Generac generators to look at the machine and say, yeah, you have a problem with the engine, but we could install a replacement engine, for example, from another vendor, supplier, different design, I don't know what. You mentioned some problems with lines. To me, lines seem like a minor issue. There are places locally that will manufacture a line. You tell them what size it is, you give them one as a sample, tell them what kind of fluid is in the line. I'm not sure exactly what they're talking about with a line, but in my business, we don't replace a $350,000 unit because of a line, okay? You make a new line, you have one manufactured, it doesn't matter if it costs $1,000, you're still saving a $350,000 expense. So if we can have the engineer that's doing the study about the generator, have them get somebody in there to confirm that's what we need. And if that's the case, that's the case, but, and no disrespect to our staff, you know, the town electrician is a fantastic guy, he does a great job. I'm not sure he's an expert on Generac generators. So that's what I'd like to see put into the RFQ.
We can certainly ask them to come in and take a look to see if they can suggest a different engine, or again, I don't know, but myself not being an expert on it, whether or not some other engine will connect to all of the other parts. That I don't know, but we certainly can inquire to add or delete anything from the proposal that I initially asked them to do.
And none of us up here know either. I'm just saying, you know, when the guy that services your oil burner comes in and he says, you know, you need to replace that burner because it's 20 years old and there's a line leaking, you know, I'm not going to say go ahead and do it. I'm going to get somebody else in there with a second opinion and to establish that that's what we need to do. That's all.
Go to a hardware store.
Councilman Hill?
Thanks, Mayor. Bonnie, this might be a question for you. Just looking through these, so the Capital Advisory Committee, the town manager comments has 49 projects. They're all ranked. So obviously the police generator, number 8, library generator 32, library HVAC is 39. The library generator and HVAC is a little lower down the list. So is it the expectation that we're going to be doing all of these Capital Advisory Committee projects? Because if we're going to be doing number 39, does that mean we're going to go 1 through 39?
I would think you probably do not have enough money to do it all, especially because you've still got the Kevin, the non-capital items. But these are ones that I know that were, discussed a lot, and Mr. Deputy Mayor was on that committee too, and so he knows, but that is what the rankings finally came back with. So yes, police is up there, but the other 2 are lower down on the list.
But you get like this, essentially this engineering assessment, you can kind of almost keep it in your back pocket for.
At least we'd have it in case,
okay.
Because the other thing is, there's going to be grant opportunities. We now have the grant writer, so if you can get it.
I just don't want to be locked in, put it that way. So
I hear you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
If I may also add, this is for engineering drawings. This isn't just for them to assess, this is for them to come in to give us stamped engineered drawings, which we would then be able to go out onto the street to get bids for. So there is a lot of work that would go into it. It would give you a plan so that when you do decide to move forward, if you do, you have that at the ready.
Thank you, Sal. Appreciate it.
Mr. Deputy
If I
Mayor?
have one more comment. So what happens when you call Generac? You say, we don't work on that anymore, that's it?
Yes, we have inquired from Generac. We actually tried getting in touch with the motor company. They said that because Generac and the company no longer are in business with one another, they're no longer supporting one another, they're no longer communicating with one another, and therefore the customer, us, is left basically with a product that no longer works.
And do you tell Generac at that time, you will
I-
not be allowed to bid on a generator for the town of Wethersfield?
We have had conversations that have said that due to the customer service, we would question whether or not we would use their products
Well,
again.
there would be no question.
Well, I can't say that in a bid process, we have to leave everything open, but yes. But that is the unfortunate part of this, where we are really at their mercy of the fact that they have cut ties, and so there's no longer communication with how any of it works and whether or not,
And
we're stuck.
I'll just make one more comment. When the town goes out and purchases an expensive piece of equipment like that, as part of the purchase agreement, much the same as Dan was talking about, the service contract for software, we need to insist on receiving all the tech data on that unit, the illustrated parts book, the
Yes.
service manuals, whatever, because if you don't get it at the onset,
Right.
you're never going to get it 20 years later when you
No.
need it.
And I completely agree with you. That is something that we have instituted over the past few years, especially like with our Wethersfield High School project, all of the as-built, all of the everything. We did not pay our final bills or retainage until we received all of the O&M manuals and all of the as-built.
Thank you. Very good.
And I'm sorry if I missed this. Is the generator that we have right now, is it a diesel fuel generator? Or some type of?
I will have to get back to you on that. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
I know it's not natural gas, so it's either, I believe it is diesel.
Okay. And then, I guess it would be further down the line, but maybe look at a natural gas. Is natural gas capable of doing commercial buildings or?
We do have natural gas generators in town. It really depends on what the infrastructure is to be able to support it. Like at the community center, we couldn't have a natural gas generator there because of the low pressure of the gas lines.
Okay. Gotcha. Any other questions? Councilman Lesser, and then Councilman Forrest.
Going to put it on the table, but we can still discuss it. So I will make a motion to award the design and engineering work to RZ Design Associates for the following projects using ARPA funding: 1, police department generator; 2, library generator; and 3, HVAC unit for the library.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Councilman Forrest?
Thanks, Mayor. Through you to Ms. Katz. It's going to sound obvious, but I'm not sure it's super as obvious as it sounds. The generators that we're talking about here, the large pieces, that is used for electrical backup for those buildings. Is that the intent of that, or is it also for the? Well, that's one, but the second intent that I think it could be used for is that our standby generation where we get paid for a capacity charge for electrical generation?
The generator at the PD is to provide electrical service in case of a power failure. And it provides service for dispatch and parts of the PD building. Right now, and that's, so, does that answer your question for the
That certainly hits
police?
number one. You got it.
Okay.
Yep, yep.
So for the library, part of it is that currently the library does not have a generator. So part of this work with the engineers is to see if they could even bring service, what kind of service would be needed, what type of service would be provided by having a generator at the library, so that the library would be able to function in a certain, a certain proximity of the library in case, since the community does come to this building in the library, especially to seek information and to seek help, to become, which would allow it to then be a charging, place where people can come and charge, where they can get information if there was some type of, large event. But right now, no one ever thought, or no one discussed, or no one put in a generator at the library. And since it is such a highly utilized place, we really felt that having a generator, and this was very important to Brooke Berry, who's the library director, a generator at the library so that it could stay open if in fact there was some type of event which caused a large power failure for a number of days.
If that occurs and the generator goes on, does that generator intended to power like the air conditioning units, or is that sort of more of like an emergency sort of situation?
The generators that we have don't normally do air conditioning. They're for essential services. Sure. There are parts of the PD that are because of the server rooms and other things like that. But at the library, you would be looking at not having a generator that would power the whole building and be able to have, air conditioning and elevators and movies and everything else like that. You're really talking about emergency essential services.
And the bid, I think, is more for the site work and engineering and the rest of it. The actual project to put in these generators is,
Yes.
What is the ballpark of that?
That's why we want to have these engineered stamped drawings to be able to go out, get bids, be able to look at that. We can ask the engineers to give us an estimate, but again, that would just be an estimate based on a combination of, a standard plus their experience. It's an estimate. We want to be able to go out and really, have the plans to go out to get real bids.
As to what the deputy mayor was talking about, though, and I'm trying to just get a feel for this a little bit, are we talking several hundreds, thousands of dollars?
$350,000 for the PD generator.
Okay. So I'd like to propose something, and it's going to be a little bit of a left-hand turn here, but I'd like to talk about it. Battery backup generation for the amount of money that we are talking about here. It may be a better alternative for our town from a capacity charge, using it on a regular basis and actually earning money from the utility grid, and having, instead of a generator, a utility scale battery backup for the same amount or less amount of money that we can install. And that's a completely different change here, but it goes to the electrification of things. I know Councilor Pelletier and I had a long conversation about that. We won't have to get into it. But I'm not certain that this project and this path is actually the way toward the future. It actually feels a little bit about a way toward the past, aside from some of the issues I think, Deputy Mayor, I was listening to you about. And if we were to go forward with this plan that is in fact scoping out natural gas and diesel and stuff generators, is that not right? Not like actually solving the problem for the future and how we might be able to get a better utility out of those hundreds of thousands of dollars. Am I misspeaking or am
No,
I?
that's, you're on a different path.
Yeah.
This is to make sure that the essential services of the police department can continue running in a large scale or even small scale event, which knocks power out to those buildings and those services. How do we keep those services running in those events?
Right. But utility scale battery storage would do that.
I am not an engineer, and I am not.
We can look into it.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
what you're saying. We can ask the gentleman who's helping us
Yeah.
with the other
Sure.
thing, so we'll get back to you.
I think there's even money to be made there, in fact, because of its capacity and enough of it, but I don't think I'm comfortable actually moving forward in this direction for this, and I get it that maybe a lot of people here are, and that's okay. Because I'm not really certain this is the way forward with this $50,000. Some of the concerns the Deputy Mayor brought up, I'm not just totally comfortable or convinced yet. Maybe in another week or two, a more conversation I will be. So I think I'm going to be at least abstaining from this particular vote in this particular path with our town, as it's a lineup for a large spend, and I'm not certain is the best way forward.
Councilman O'Connor?
Yeah, I just, Bonnie, out of curiosity, because this is basically an engineering study of some sort or services, can they add the battery as part of that study? And
You'd have to,
This way
you
you
would
would-
want to make sure they have the qualifications to do something, because that's alternative kind of energy. It's almost like I would rather go to the gentleman who came to us, remember, with the schools? I'd rather go to him and ask than a company that really designs your run-of-the-mill, typical day-to-day things, which I can do. I can absolutely, so I have a note to contact him.
I mean, you know, I hate to agree with Councilor Forrest, but I'm feeling forced to, but.
Now you're getting it. See what I got?
I'm agreeing with the Deputy Mayor now.
It's very confusing up here. No, but I do
Town
think.
manager candidates now, right?
I know, exactly. I do think that if you are thinking about the future, it's like spending bad money, good money after bad, or however you do, bad money after good. I do think that if we're going to do it, then you should obviously include that piece as well, and then get a real good assessment, because if at the end of the day, it's going to cost us $350,000 for a generator anyways, well, that's, yesterday's generator.
One comment and then put it to bed.
And if I may, Mayor? And on that note, there is like our grand budgetary implication, considerations that might be made, because as we start that conversation, I've asked to have a meeting with you and I think Dan along the way. A lot of that discussion is about the electrification of our town and how we're going to start to move into reducing a lot of our tax dollars by moving away from some of the more expensive fuels. And this is sort of part of that whole process that I talked to Ms. Pelletier about. And it also sort of leapfrogs from some comments that the Deputy Mayor made as we start to actually solve our getting away and changing the dynamic of our tax structure and our spending structure. And this is actually a big piece of that as we sort of move that conversation forward. So I'd like the mayor, as not today, but you and a couple of your designees, as you like to start to have that conversation. And I wouldn't want to necessarily spend this 46.7 for this when there's concepts out there that I'm intending to bring forward that are maybe a little bit more than this, but talk about electrification of the whole town, a lot of other concepts. And I'd like to use some of this money toward that as we sort of get there. But that's a bit of a bigger conversation than today, but just to sort of plant the seed and set the stage for that conversation. And good use of money toward that.
If I may, I also don't want you to lose sight of the fact that part of this was also the unit at the library, the HVAC unit at the library. And that is actually a very large part of the proposal if you looked at the breakdown of the different proposals. That unit, which is on the roof of the library, is also an aging unit, and one which we have had 2 years ago. We replaced some coils. That unit gets ducted down into the library through a series of ducts which are not metal. They are what's called ductboard. And so it's a porous material that we cannot really clean thoroughly and properly. So again, this proposal was to put a design together for the replacement of that ductwork in addition to the replacement of that bigger unit. I certainly understand the issues that you've put forth. I just didn't want you to lose sight of the fact that that, which is a pretty large project, is also part of the packet.
Councilman Lesser?
Well, I was going to know if we could amend the motion or include potentially, looking into what Matt and Dan, Councilor, kind of I don't know what the right form, electrification, alternative energy. And I think I made the motion, and I'm probably going to support the motion, but I think wondering if we can make an amendment to add that in.
Yeah, looking at alternative energy sources or something.
Yeah, I mean, we've already, we've got
Yeah.
Adam from Titan. So
Exactly.
would we need to, should we get a commitment from you, or do you want to amend the motion to include?
I promise. I'll do it before I go, I promise.
Well, then I would call the question and see what.
All right. And just as a follow-up, we did work as a council back in October or so, maybe even September, to work with Titan Energy to have that battery system at the high school. While it's not a generator, if you will, it does have the same capabilities of providing energy sources to the high school during those peak demands to, as I kept saying, roll out the curve on or the spikes on our demand. So, we'll have Titan Energy, give us a recommendation or their input in whether or not a battery backup. And I don't know. I mean, I know they're coming online, but whether or not it's capable of providing enough power to run dispatch, radios, computers, servers, etc. We'll get that from them. So,
You need a second? You have a
motion had been made, and
I'll second it.
you're good. We did have a second?
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
I thought we did. Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. And our last item of the evening, if I'm not mistaken, on new business, appointment of agent of records. And this comes to us from the insurance committee. And if you want to come on up and talk as chairman of the insurance committee. Okay.
And just to repeat, I'm Frank Cena, live on Eastern Drive, and I am the chair of the Insurance Committee and also serve on the Veterans Commission. So I'm going to give you context, very short, because I know time is late. I hope you all recorded Ken Burns and Ben Franklin's show. So 3 things. One, what we have with our current agents of record is a real proactive partnership. We spend excruciating hours. We always go more than the hour. Sometimes we go an hour and a half talking about the real details of claims, of trends, analysis that our agents of record provide. I mean, it's just excruciatingly long because we have as many questions as they have of us. I'll give you a couple examples. One, I invited the Chief Medina to speak to the committee as well as our agents of record, so that would provide context for them as well as our committee members with issues that had to do with workers' comp or public safety, personal liability. The second is that KIRMA, which is our property and casualty carrier, through our property and casualty agent of record, it regularly invites us to either live meetings where they educate us about things that go on in the insurance business, both locally and nationally, as well as participating in podcasts. Latest one was cybersecurity, and it's a real help to us in educating ourselves to learn about cybersecurity from a company that has a very large perspective of it, both locally, statewide, and nationally. And the third part was KIRMA also has a representative, our underwriter, Ashley Rita, who participates both live when she's able to or in Zoom meetings to give us, again, their perspective of trends and analysis. So that partnership, a very proactive partnership, has great value added to the committee. And I feel that fees aside, and that's another issue that you obviously will want to decide if you go with an RFP, is a huge value to the committee, which in turn is value to the town. We never think of anything less than how can we minimize the cost to the town while providing benefits to our employees and our, what's the word I'm looking for? Bargaining units. But everything we think of is how do we minimize costs to the town? If we can save 1/10 of 1%, 1 mil, we feel good about that. So when we get a rebate back from our carrier because our claims were less, things like, we feel good about that. And that's what the relationship is here, a very proactive relationship. And that's what I want to leave you with. Paul?
Good evening. I'm Paul Mead. I'm the current vice chair of the Insurance Committee. I have been on the committee since sometime in the late 1990s. Rich Roberts keeps appointing me when I'm not looking, and he reappoints me all the time. I think the question that you are probably asking is, why are we not looking to put this out to bid? It's been over 10 years. During the time that I've been on the committee, we have put it out to bid twice. Back when I started, I think we had 2 agencies. They were local agencies who we were paying $40,000, I believe, to each agency for acting as agent of record. We didn't know how lousy a job they were doing until we did put it out to bid. We got better pricing from agencies like USI and the Chris Monroe's former agency. He's now with USI. He does the employee benefits. And they bid, I think it was $29,000 or $30,000 each for each side. We interviewed, I believe we had 5 or 6 bids from agencies, and USI was the second lowest. And I think the only agency that bid lower was somebody bid 25, and they could only handle property casualty. They couldn't handle the employee benefits aspect of things. We are very fortunate to have the expertise that both Chris Monroe and Chris Wardrop have provided us. They've continued to provide a very excellent level of service for well over a decade. It's sort of along the idea of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If we do put it out for bid, I would be very surprised if any agencies are bidding at a significantly lower level than USI, and I would guarantee that the level of service is going to have to be, they're going to have to work very hard to equal the level of service that we've gotten from USI. That's more or less all I have to say, and I can answer any questions if you have any. And Chris Wardrop is here as well tonight, so I'm sure he can answer some questions if you have some.
Any questions for Paul, Frank, or Chris at all? I guess I had a question for Frank. With KERMA, does that come through the agents of record, or is that part of another service that we have?
I think I'll defer to, have you earned your money, Chris?
I took my mask off so you could see me.
Oh, you gotta
Chris,
go to the mic.
can you please come up? Yep, please.
Happy to put it on or leave it off, depending on what you would like. I'm Chris Wardrop with USI, and I'm one of the public entity practice leaders. I work in Meriden. I live in Ellington, so I cross back through Wethersfield when I'm not working hybrid. To answer the question, Mayor, KERMA is a direct writer, so they were formed per the IRMA statute. So we are not technically an agent of record for KERMA. What we are is a fixed fee agent of record for the town. So when we do our analysis of different carriers or different programs, and each year we take a look whether it's a soft approach or whether it's a hard approach. But what we do here is we look and say what's in the best interest in terms of overall quality. So KERMA has been that carrier. And as was alluded to before, they do have certain types of benefits that are unique. There are a number of other municipalities that enjoy some of those benefits, but we take an independent view on behalf of the town and the school district. And so KERMA was the one that we had recommended.
Okay. And we get KERMA from on their own, or do we get KERMA through CCM or some other entity? I was always under the impression that if we're a member of CCM, we are also entitled to KERMA as our risk management.
It's a great point. So the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities does have KERMA inside of it, but there is no requirement that you be a member of CCM to procure insurance coverage through KERMA.
Okay. Nor conversely, if we are a member of CCM, it doesn't, well, I guess we don't have to go with KERMA if we are a member of CCM?
That is correct.
And so do we pay separately for KERMA, or do we pay?
Oh, no, you pay separately. KERMA was because all the other insurance companies got out of the municipal business and didn't want anything to do with us. So KERMA was started, and CCM initiated it because we had no coverage as municipalities. So we've been very lucky that they still stick around with us because there aren't many other options. That's the other problem.
Okay.
Yeah, we could go on about KERMA versus other carriers, and we have relationships with other carriers. I'm being one of our leaders, and I work with a lot of municipalities in Connecticut. I have for 27 years now. The statutes in Connecticut, in part because of law enforcement, in part because of workers' compensation for volunteer firefighters, 7-308 and whatnot. But if you look at these different statutes, there are insurance companies that they do have a hard time looking at that and saying, can we be profitable over time? And some of them have said, no, we can't, and that has dwindled. In the 90s, the Hartford had, I think it was 80% market share, and then they backed off, and so that's what we're left with. But right here, and I've been very fortunate to work with the town and the school district, and I thank you very much, councilors, mayor, deputy mayor. We've seen third-party litigation. We've seen very large workers' compensation claims. I won't go into any specifics with those, but I do know that the decisions and the recommendations that were made by the insurance committee, Mayor, you alluded to a smoothing over with the prior agenda item, and I would say that we have absolutely seen that with some, we've had some, like I said, we have a couple very large open claims even right now, and some other carriers would, the way that they would handle it, I think we'd be looking at some pretty significant spikes, which would have a negative impact on budget. And so that's another piece to it. But we're very, very, very serious about what we do for our public entity clients. And these gentlemen have seen it. I think I have attended every year at least 7 insurance committee meetings. and because that's the job. And I was the one who was interviewed in 2010. We have not taken an increase in our fee. I can tell you we benchmark our fees. There are other RFPs in Connecticut. I'm very confident that you are in a very competitive, probably top 10 or 15%. Our fee, I know some of you are probably familiar with insurance commission percentages as a percentage of premium, and an average is about 10%. Our fee is 2.3%. But the way we're able to do it is an efficiency of working on these types of matters, municipal matters. And I was fortunate to spend 2.5+ hours here because I wrote down defective highway statute, 7-314, 7-149, I think. Defective highway statute, potholes, railroad, equipment breakdown, the Generac generator, contract risk with Fuss and O'Neill or whoever you hire, small not-for-profits. How do you ensure that the town is protected when you're working with maybe a not-for-profit related to a property that could be used for further development? Utility scale battery backup generator. I loved that because right in my own backyard in Ellington, there's a firm called Earthlight, and there's some risk issues related to that. What if there's an equipment breakdown? I would even say that if you're selling power back to the bid or getting, I think it's Z credits or what they're called, could we afford business income coverage if there was an equipment breakdown? This hasn't even come up yet. So I wrote these things down, and I even wrote that there's a firm called Energia that I believe is involved in energy consulting, in case that was a name that you might want, because I'm very involved with the Association of School Business Officers, PRIMA, government finance officers, and the Council of Small Towns. So a lot of it is connections and who you know and stuff, and if they can help our clients, they do. So,
We love this guy.
well, if you're in the public sector with risk and insurance, you got to be all in. You can't write 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 municipalities. I work with about 35 municipalities in Connecticut, and I'm part of the advisory group inside USI. We work with about 2,000 around the country, and I love them. Absolutely love them. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilman O'Connor?
Yeah, first, thank you for, one, holding your rates since 2010. Town appreciates that. I do have a question, though. So you said you get a 2.3% commission rate, and that's a flat rate. So regardless of what carrier, that rate always stays the same?
Right. So what I did is I applied some math, and looking at the current premiums for the property casualty and workers' compensation coverage, I was just trying to come up with kind of some metrics about how would this relate. And the way we come up with a flat fee, Counselor, is based on a number of different methods. It's a little bit of art and science that are put together in that. But that 2.3%, it's a fixed fee. It's regardless of carrier. Frankly, it's regardless of premium. And our fee is built on giving you basically a return on your investment, but it's also built with flex up or down in the event that you have some major need. When Wethersfield High School had the renovation project, I spent a considerable amount of time working and looking at the contract language with the town manager, with the finance director, and your legal counsel. I think it was Duncan Forsyth at the time, I believe. And we were able to reduce the cost of the insurance well into the 5 digits. I remember that. It was really, really cool. On the flip side, we have a municipal client right now that for the past almost 2 weeks now, they have had a significant cyber breach situation involving ransomware, involving their police department. I've been on the phone with them, I think about 10 times so far. And this morning, I put together an inventory of cybersecurity training resources for our client. So our fee, a lot of people who, I'll say, either dabble or work with maybe 1 or 2 municipalities, they go into it thinking, we're going to have, it's new business to us, we're good. But I assure you that if you get into this, you better be committed. And people that know me and know our team, we have a pretty big team in Meriden. I always say we're subject to FOI. All you got to do is Google my name. You'll see that I work with Manchester, East Hartford, Bloomfield, Windsor, Enfield, and some other ones around here. And you can call them. They don't know. Call them unannounced. You know, we set a what I call a competitive fee, but we're drawing off of the efficiency of having done this before. That cyber breach with that municipality was the third municipality that's had a cyber breach that I work with within the last 2 years. So I have been through that before.
So then, you're a salesperson, so I will ask you this. Why should we not go out to bid when traditionally we're required to go out to bid almost every 3 years, yet we haven't in, I think, Paul, you said 10 years? Why, so I'm asking, why should we forego going out to bid, which is really our responsibility as counselors?
Right.
And can you explain to the council why we shouldn't go out to bid and we should just stay status quo?
Right. So first and foremost, I respect whatever decision the council decides to go in, and we will absolutely be all in responding. And I can speak on behalf of Chris Monroe, who handles the employee benefits. By the way, he was flying back into Connecticut today. That's the reason why he could not make it. I didn't text him saying, hey, you might still be able to make it here, because he doesn't live that far away from here, right? But he would echo the same thing. The letter that I had sent to the town manager and finance director, which is in your packet, I think it's towards the end, it laid out a few points. But what we look at is, number one, if the committee, if the leadership, and I'll include the Board of Education. I work with the business officer, our business manager, Matt Kazaka, pretty closely as well. If their feelings are that we're getting very high grades as a professional service provider, if we are maintaining an efficient cost structure with no increases, and if avoiding an RFP process is something that actually will help the town, and we've put in writing our offer, it matches, I connect to the original RFP response, I'll maintain that we're not going to have a subordinate handle the account. I will remain as a leader, just as Chris Monroe and the employee benefits is. If the council, and already the committee has independently, done their vote, if the feeling is that for different reasons, it does make sense to forego an RFP, and it's for a 3-year period, or whatever, then that would be great. But I always view myself as a municipal risk manager, and I do have some not-for-profit clients and some private sector clients, but really that's what it's about.
So that fee, the 2.3%, is the same fee that you've been getting over the last 10 years?
Yeah, actually, it's $32,500. That's what is in that, and that is the flat fee, and that is what USI, for the property casualty insurance side, has been getting annually during our contract period.
And that's including the 2.3 commission?
There's no commission. The 2.3% was simply me taking the
So that's how
annual.
you got to the 32?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, that's fine.
Yeah.
Paul,
To your question, one of the things that
Paul, can I could just get you to come up, please? Thank you.
one of the things that I asked myself is okay, these USI and Chris Monroe were on the low end of the fees that they were asking for when we, the last time we did the bid process. And one of the questions you ask yourself is, well, how can they provide good service at these low fees when we have these other agencies who want, $15,000, $20,000 more? And I think the answer is there's an economy of scale, that USI does this kind of municipal work at a far greater level than most of the other agencies. They're kind of reinventing the wheel every time they get these issues. our vote in the committee was unanimous, not to go out to bid. And I can't speak for all the town employees, but certainly those we interact with have not voiced to us any complaints whatsoever about the work that USI has done for us over the years. And in fact, I think they've been quite happy with the feedback and the responsiveness of USI as our agents of record. So, again, the primary reason, secondary reason for not going out to bid is it's a lot of work for the committee members, but that's not really the reason. I mean, the town needs to save money where it can save money. I think you'd have a false economy here. I don't think that even if we put it out to bid, we're going to get any agency that's going to bid at a level that is significantly lower than what CSI is giving us for the work that they're doing. So,
Thank you.
Any other? Well, before you make the motion, is it typical that we go with a 3-year contract every time?
that's been my experience. I think that there's a part of our
Paul, again, can I just have you, sorry about that.
As part of our bylaws is that we have to make a recommendation to the council as to whether to put it out for bid or not, or to recommend an agent. And I think it's every 3 years that we have to do that. But we have been, over the past 12 years, we've been working on a 3-year guaranteed commitment from USI. And before Chris Monroe was with USI, with his agency, where they agreed not to raise rates over a 3-year period, and it's worked. So,
What, and maybe I'll ask of the insurance committee, it's a 3-year contract. If we did a 1-year contract with USI, and then, take that time in that 1 year to look a little bit deeper into, what's asked of our insurance carrier, and, also look at what other services are out there. If we did a 1-year contract and then went out to RFP, I mean, it's pretty, what Chris had said was, pretty compelling, but it's also the duty of this council to look at, other options out there. And it's not only simply for, financial savings. 12 years is a long time. I'm sure, prices have gone up, and if USI and Chris have kept it at 34 and 32.5, they're keeping it low for a reason, and we're staying with them. But, there may be other things out there that we may have been missing over the last 12 years that we may want to look further into with an RFP.
Well, currently, the recommendation that we accepted was a 3-year rate guarantee, so I don't know if that would change if we went out for an RFP with other carriers to look at whether or not the 3 years that Chris committed to would stand. So I can't speak to that piece without having USI consider what the impact might be of just having a 1-year rate guarantee versus 3.
Okay. Mr. Deputy Mayor?
We're in a difficult situation here. It's very similar to another contractor that we use for a completely different subject, but we have extended their contract every 3 years. We keep extending it and extending it. They provide excellent service to the town. We have a great working relationship. The prices, as far as we know, are very fair, but we get scrutinized by the public, if you will.
Yeah.
Are we doing our job? Are we making sure we get the right price and so forth? So,
We understand that. There may even be a liability, Chris, if they don't do their job. But we don't have a problem with that. I mean, it will be some extra work for us. We've done it before. We did it last year when Cigna replaced Anthem, okay? And Chris Monroe did a terrific job in helping us understand what the differences were, and it's been terrific. You can talk about premiums, but with healthcare, you got to talk about customer service, because you want your doctor to pick up the freaking phone, right? But we went through that, and we can do that again. And I understand where you are. I really do. I was in a business once where we did that, and I was in the Army where we had to do that. So it makes sense, and if it's a level of comfort / liability, then yeah, we can do that.
Is the market such that there's going to be some firm out there that just wants to get the business and they're just going to lowball it to get in there, and then we're stuck with a problem?
Well, that may be the case. The other point in all this is that the real money that the town pays is in premium dollars, not in the fees for the agents of record. And at least my experience has been that we've enjoyed a partnership with USI over the last decade where they've worked and shown us where they're saving us premium dollars. That doesn't mean another agency couldn't do that. It's just, like I said before, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They've done an excellent job for us.
And that's true on large claims. When we switched from Anthem to Cigna, there were a couple of outstanding large claims that had the tail on it. And Chris Monroe was very diligent in making sure that we and the new carrier didn't accept any part of that claim that was not. And that's really drilling down very deeply. But again, if it's your decision to, it makes sense to do that for mutual protection and for the town, yeah, we'll do it. But I will tell you that based on what we know from what Chris said, there are very few agents out there. There are very few places to go to really rebuild it from scratch. So again, entirely up to you. I would never say don't do it. It's your call.
And there is, as the deputy mayor pointed out, there's a benefit to continuity. That is, these gentlemen have been working with the town for over a decade, and we've been working with them. And you bring in somebody new, there's changes.
Right.
In the industry, Town of Wethersfield Insurance Committee is top rated in terms of our diligence and the amount of effort we put into it. I know I'll do it modestly in my short history, but we are very dedicated to it. And Chris has said himself, and as Chris Monroe, your insurance committee really works for the town. But again, I don't want to be a salesman also. So
I just want to reiterate that your performance, not only from the insurance committee, but from the vendor, is not in question at all. And we understand the working relationship and all those things. It's just the outside speculation that we might be subject to. And I would ask that, could we explore the 1 year? Could we go back and explore the 1 year option if that is in fact an option? Or
And the option would be that we would make another recommendation at the end of the year?
Well, it wouldn't be, I guess we would go for an RFP towards the end of the next 1 year. And then make a recommendation based on.
Let you finish, Mayor.
Based on, the submittals of RFPs.
So in essence, we extend this one for 1 year.
I don't know if Chris, that can be done for you guys, a 1 year versus a 3 year.
So, and I know Councilor Biggs, you raised your hand too, so I want to make sure.
Yeah, by all means.
Okay, thank you.
You're a guest in our house. Just come to the mic.
Muscle memory. I was laughing because a gentleman said, are you potentially looking at the town as town manager? I took that as a compliment. So, number one, we do have a formal process. I won't kid you that I can't unilaterally just simply say 1 year, totally fine. I mean, generally, like I always say, does it pass the sniff test? And when I think about that, we've had a long-standing relationship. So generally, I feel like that could happen on the property casualty side. I can't speak to Chris Monroe and the employee benefits because that is technically a separate contract inside USI. I want to, but technically I can't. So I want to call Chris, or maybe somebody can text him right now and we'll get him on the phone. Just kidding. But I don't know with the formality if this is something where the committee asks us or you ask us. I mean, tomorrow morning I can start the process and ask those questions and have Chris Monroe explore that on his side too, and then render an official written response, if that's what would be warranted.
Thank you, Mayor. All I was going to add on is one of the questions that Deputy Mayor asked about other business coming in and lowballing and whatnot. I will just say from experience in the insurance industry, be careful because lowballing is happening just to take the business. Doesn't mean the quality and coverage is actually there. So everything else, I'm like, yes, RFP. I think it's great to RFP because, like you said, military, we're used to every 3 years. We have to regardless. I think we should do that, but just be careful because lowballing is happening to get the business, but you're not getting the quality of service. So as a committee, I just want us all to be careful with that.
Yeah. Thank you, Counselor. I will tell you, there are brokers out there that are looking to drive top-line revenue only, and that first-year revenue boost to meet goals is out there. The reason I know that is that even inside USI, that exists, and I think in other businesses it does. Regardless of which way you go, make sure to have questions, direct questions of whoever you work with, and you can ask me, what type of relationship do you have with the leadership at the carrier level, the claims department leadership, the loss prevention risk management service leadership? That's incredibly important. As I was hearing about continuity, I set up a meeting at KERMA with about, I think it was close to a dozen people. And your town manager was there, the finance director, your legal counsel was there, Ken, and we were talking about a really, really complicated matter that involved law enforcement, personnel. This is a public meeting, I'm not going to go further into it. The relationships that have been developed over time, in this case with KERMA, led to an ability to move some things forward that I feel would not have been able to be accomplished if we did not have respectful relationships. That is incredibly important when we're dealing with third-party litigation, with workers' compensation, and frankly, even with contracts. I do a lot of work. Bonnie knows this. She's kind of seen my name over the years. I do a lot of contract risk consultation, rework contracts, and for a variety of different reasons. So those are super important regardless of which way you go. Okay? Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Forrest?
You can, lots of good ideas on the dais. My experience with both Chris's, after serving as liaison to the insurance committee, is that they're both tremendously prepared for years. Seem to get the job done to our benefit every year in all kinds of different scenarios. And you could go out to bid, but I think you'd be wasting a lot of time here. But I certainly understand the feeling. They've held their rates for the last 10 years, and their work product and analytics and dedication and response time and relationships are some of the best I've seen in the entire town. So that's just my perspective. It may be persuasive, it may not be persuasive, but I'd be ready to go forward with it.
We can gather information from on a table, and I'll gather information. Like, we have to hear from Chris Monroe whether he would do a year, and so you may want to just table it, and then I'll get all the info.
I would be comfortable with tabling it, and to me it wouldn't surprise me at all by going out to bid if we still end up with USI anyways, but it would sure make me feel personally a little more comfortable that we did our due diligence. And you don't have to go with the lowest bidder. In fact, I think when we first chose you, I thought, Paul, you may have mentioned they weren't the lowest bidder. So I'm not concerned about that. I'm more concerned about it is our responsibility to do this. And, you know, we don't want to pretend that we're shunning that responsibility and just saying, well, let's just get in, because we've done that before and it's not been to our benefit anyways.
Yeah.
And so the idea that I would think in 10 years that your rates haven't been flat and haven't changed, I'd be very skeptical of someone coming in lower than that, personally. That I would sit there and say, okay, someone's trying to buy the business. So I do think having that and going through that due diligence is in our best interest, and I think the compromise, and I won't speak for the mayor, the compromise to me was if we extended this for a year and you knew up front we're gonna go out to bid, as opposed to just throwing it on you now, if we're going out to bid, could we do that? And so I guess if you got that from Chris Monroe, that would be great. And so that would make sense if we table that until we hear back from him. If that
No,
works.
I will expedite that.
Okay.
So motion to table? So we do, or to the next meeting?
That's fine with me.
Is that how you do it?
Motion to table, second.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for the committee for coming. Please.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
I took a
Very
lot of
helpful.
notes about risk.
You can all come, it's very exciting, anytime.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with the town manager.
Yeah. We'll see you in a little while.
It's 8 o'clock
8 o'clock
tomorrow.
tomorrow morning breakfast.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
I am very impressed with all of it. It's, only wish that our federal government is, have a good discourse like you all had tonight. It was very impressive.
We do it for the salary. That keeps us in check.
Hey, we ought to keep that until the business meeting, right, for high school.
Okay, then that's the last of it. We've got approval of the minutes for, well, this says April 4th. I think the date may be wrong.
It was sent.
There's a revised.
Oh,
Revised one sent
sorry.
out.
I did see the email that came in with the revised,
I'll move.
so.
I move acceptance of the minutes.
I have a comment about the minutes, and I'm not criticizing any of the minute taking, but some of the conversations that I had regarding the Kycia farm are not exactly accurate or complete, and maybe Sue did that to kind of soften the blow to Mr. Mazzarella, but I guess I'll just abstain from it. There's no reason to rewrite the whole thing, but I just want to make that noted that it wasn't exactly what was said by all those speaking.
Do you want to make amendments? Because we can table it. if
No,
you
because
feel
it's,
not accurate. The
it's a,
accuracy's-
it's a half an hour discussion that was not verbatim, so I just assumed, just make a note that I didn't feel it was accurate and go from there. That's, if we can do that.
Well, there are transcripts, there's a recorded message, that got, the full impact of the dialogue, so.
There was people that spoke in the audience that was not included, so that kind of thing.
From the audience, not on the microphone.
Right.
Okay. And I guess, I don't know if that would be included in minutes, or if they weren't recognized.
I asked questions that don't appear in the minutes. And at least I couldn't find them.
I don't think the minutes they're not a transcript of the meeting.
Right.
They're a summary.
Summary, right.
So, but if you think the summary's not accurate, I do think it's sort of the responsibility to bring it to the council.
Well,
I wasn't at the meeting, so I'm going to abstain, but that's because I wasn't here to.
I took a fair amount of heat, and I think I asked legitimate questions. Maybe the tone could have been better, but I did ask the questions, and I got answers that were not accurate, and I think that should be reflected in the minutes, so I'm not asking for a transcript, I just want it noted that it's not verbatim.
Okay.
Can we do that, or?
Yeah, I think-
I don't know.
Yes, you can. Sure. You can.
Yeah, I think you just-
You can put that into the minutes.
Yeah, I think you just did.
Thank you.
Okay.
Should we also add the comment that he didn't accept my apologies acceptance?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
As long as it's asterisk.
I said what I said. I'm not ashamed of it.
It's his birthday. It's his birthday party.
Yeah, can that be bolded?
Accept your
Are you
apology.
making a
I'm not
motion?
apologizing to you.
Larger font.
Okay.
Can I make a motion to approve the meeting, the minutes of the special meeting on March 21st, 2022?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Abstain.
Okay.
I also abstain.
Sorry. On the, oh yes, on the special meeting. And then, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of March 21st with the comments by Deputy Mayor that they're not truly reflective of what he said, but with the understanding that these are a summary of dialogue by the council and members of the public, and that for a better handle of what transpired, to view the recorded session of the town council meeting from the 21st.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions?
Abstain.
Motion carries. Both meetings' minutes are adopted. Public comment? Rocky?
Good evening, everyone in the audience, too. Rocky Karuk, 149 Broad, also known as David Karuk. But, yeah, I wanted to talk earlier about Kycia Farm. It's not over yet about Kycia. I have some comments to say. As far as I know, you just approved a $3,000 surveying grant, and I guess all the plans are still up in the air, as far as I know. But I watched that presentation done by the Harvard, University of Harvard students, and, you know, it was good for students, you know, it was like their project, you know, and there were advisors there. I don't know if they were professors or staff from the university, but they went up to the mic and explained it a little bit more, and, you know, I thought it was good, but it wasn't, I don't think it was in-depth or professional. You know, it was lacking a lot. You know, it really just focused on the farm, and one of the advisors was comparing it to other towns. I forgot what other town it was. Might have been Glastonbury, but that does have its community farm, says and explained how well it's working, and so, you know, kind of giving the impression that it could work that well in Wethersfield, but they're comparing two different towns with different socioeconomic levels, but they did say that you know, that we can't say that it would succeed in Wethersfield, and if it doesn't, then I guess we'll do something else. But I guess that's always an option. If the farm, the gardening doesn't do well, we could just change plans. But as far as the fields go, they didn't really talk too much. They did talk about it, and they did talk about, one of the students I remember talked about the problem is some of the land is not suitable for fields, so that limits the amount of land you can use for fields. And the whole time they're talking about it, says we have limited land in Wethersfield. I have like buyer's remorse for the Wilkes farms for voting for this preserved open space, because now we can't use it for anything. And I think a lot of people didn't realize that when you make it permanent open space, you can't use it. You know, it's give it back to nature, you know, for the birds to use. And now we have this farm that we can use, this space, and And, you know, I don't, and, you know, they had the students do the surveys, and we got feedback from the surveys, but I just hope they don't think of this, people who answer the surveys as being experts. You know, these are just residents, and they don't reflect all the town. They don't reflect all the parents who have kids who could use fields, because I think, as far as the farm use, you know, that's, you know, we don't know if that's going to work. That's a leap of faith a little bit. You know, it may or may not. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. But the fields, we know for sure that will be successful, because there is a need for more fields. And if we have more fields, where there's a lot of kids in Wethersfield, they would be used. So we know that for sure. But as far as other options, they discussed a few options, but I just want to make one more comment about, there was someone talking about Main Street in the parking lot. I think the parking lot behind the fire station, I think that's what proposed, I think that's pretty much the only place you could put a parking lot. I don't think of any other place you could put one. And we need parking, and so I would be in favor of that. And that's so close to the Charles, that would alleviate that problem of parking on the street for the Charles. But, and also, one more thing, it always bugged me, now that Main Street's going to be redesigned, it'd be great if we had better lighting at night. You know, like when I go to Glastonbury and I go across the river and see the shops, and it's more lit, you know, it looks nice. But then you go to Wethersfield, it's kind of like the dimmers are on, you know, it's kind of, like when we have the Christmas tree lighting, they have to bring the big lights on, because there's really hardly any light there. And I don't know if we could have a way of maybe turning up, we could have adjustable lights so when there's an event, we could turn them up, and the rest of the year, we could have them a little bit lower. But I think the dim lighting doesn't really show off the historic beauty of Main Street at night. So that's my last comment. Thanks.
Thank you. And actually, we are looking at those dimmable lights, so, yep. Okay. Motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it.